communication skills.
You shutting down or you open up. Accountability starts sounding silly when you're talking about somebody that don't really want to hold you down because they hold you up. Do you invite it or turn it down? Responsibility becomes the motivation. Watching out for low vibrations, gotta pay attention to the conversations now. The small things bring me gratitude. The person I looked up to the most ruined me. I was the one to catch it, so I blew it up. It was the right thing to do to me. I was young and this is when the drama started. Didn't know the family would just fall apart. Paid attention to the victim, but nobody paid attention to my little broken heart. Shattered in pieces, my very first role model, damn. Instantly changed up how I see shit. To keep it real, I was lost, fam. I couldn't follow a soul, started having identity issues. Now I'm spinning way out of control. I was too young to pin it against you. What if I never said anything? What if it was something I never seen? What if life didn't hit me so fast? Maybe I could've took a different path, but this the trauma that was given to me. And these are the demons that's living in me. Communication became the healing for me. I finally know how it really should be. Finally know.
You need a type of love that I can't give. We can't just play pretend. We try and fail again. Communication skills I can't even comprehend. Didn't wanna sacrifice my friend, but we can't seem to find no end. Communication skills.
I recently took a class. But anyone can take it. It's online. It's called Peer Support Specialist. I got my degree. It's only, or I guess not a degree. It's like a little certification. For peer support specialty, and it's only like a week class, but it really teaches you how to communicate, but also how to like receive from others, that have gone through either like mental health trauma, drug abuse trauma, or just like anything, like anyone that has gone through stuff. The whole peer support system is supposed to take all of your past experience and then teach you how to present who you currently are and what you can do in whatever setting that you're in, how you can help that person by becoming a mirror for that person, in the sense that you can help them find their goals and define them, and then as a I guess as a third party, you can ask questions to help them develop a path to get to that goal. And my goal, like as a peer support specialist, is to help you as much with my words as possible. Like if I can help you, you walk away feeling like you have a clear sense of direction that you've chosen, that you've decided for yourself, and you feel better because you got to vent a little bit and hear that, like, hey, like, yeah, I am going through a hard time and it's okay. You know what I mean? Like just that validity. So a lot of people don't even let themselves feel that they're actually going through a really hard time. They minimize it. It helps.
I got that. Yeah, heard them call me conscious. I ain't think about it honestly. My thoughts too deep to process, so I do this all unconsciously. Finally feeling God bless. Got 'em woke up dropping prophecy. Don't take it out of context. Just before, I swear they always sleep. Now they catch the message, yeah. Bet that every song is deep. It's levels in each concept. But I can't just never mono theme. I'm trying to lead this flock for the cause, not the following. People upon a partner, and I wonder why they drawn to me. Once upon a time, I thought to follow up a dream. Draw life about these lines, nothing twice about these schemes, and like thrice about these insights. What I write is like a blueprint for you to comprehend life. That's light. I recommend you shine. Never dim it down, even if you live surrounded where everybody vision clouded. Remember staying down ain't quite as good as getting out. And remember staying down ain't quite as, ay. Few believed, yeah. Many doubted it was hard for them to think. Somehow I'm finally getting out of that's it. Usually, yeah, they vision clouded, but as you can see by now, we finally getting out there writing truth, spreading love. Tell me how you feel about it. Got this music from above, that's how I know I'm getting out there writing truth, spreading love. Tell me how you feel about it. Got this music from above, that's how I,
Hell yeah. I got my man Doop. Is that what you go, that's what you go by, right?
Yep, that's my
your internet name anyway, right? That's what's up. So I got my man Doop on. I've actually been a guest on his podcast, Doop's Closet, as well as I did look this up, the Collective Perspective podcast. You guys haven't done anything really
Um,
since those first several pods.
yeah.
Are y'all planning on doing any more? Or?
Well, yes, and but I just think that like we're both like leveling up on some skills. Actually, I have a lot of new skills that I had to learn. Um, like just podcasting in general. I've been working on a lot of things, so like I'm excited to get back into it and do more. But it's been a minute. Like I haven't connected with Sarah on a podcast level. We just talk as friends. But I'd love to get with her and collect and continue with the collective perspective because I mean, there's some important things to talk about. There's like a lot of
Well,
important things.
I think there's a lot of things just in that. Just in that, there's a lot there, right? Like there, the internet also connects like-minded people, and ultimately it can be used as a tool, and it is what we make of it. And I think the internet's been great to connect me with people like you. I met you through Sarah, who I met through the Wrecking Crew, which was basically a fan club for an amazing music artist named Recognize. And although the four people I just named, me, you, Sarah, Rec, have very different perspectives and worldviews, I think ultimately what connects us is just being real. And then how do you define that? It's hard to even get at that. It's something that I think you just kind of feel, right?
Yeah,
Um,
authenticity.
right. Yeah, for sure. But that's how I met Doop. So that's my intro for Doop. But also the reason I had him on my podcast, and something that we alluded to before we started recording, is Doop is very good at getting at asking the direct questions, at getting at the heart of an issue with his questioning or interrogation or interviewing. I think you would do a great job, like as an interviewer. For maybe a recruiter, could be in your future in the professional world. If you could find an industry that you would actually want to do that in, that's the
Yeah,
tough
who
part
wants to be
there, right?
recruited to what?
Right,
What's your
right.
criteria?
We might need to have a paradigm shift before that goes down, but anyways, I've said too much already. The point is we're going to have a relatively open discussion. I didn't write a whole lot down, but we were talking a little bit before we started recording, and one of the things that came up was just the topic of death. My
Mm,
pops, he's actually been on my pod, like right before he had a seizure. Actually, it was like a month before he had a seizure. Was when we recorded that podcast. Um, but he's pretty much on his last leg, and I, we didn't get all the way there because I was like, we need to hit record before we get too deep. But the thing about death for me, and I think for anybody who has a more optimistic worldview or just the way they see things, is death is just a reminder of how precious life is, and just it's hard to eat. I think under like questioning why we're here, and really the word I wanted to get to, but I didn't smoothly arrive at it, is purpose. Uh, I think death teaches us that life has a purpose. What it is, I think that I think that is a good discussion. I don't want to define that. I think that's something that we have to collectively, like the collective perspective, what you guys are alluding to. I think purpose on an individual level might need to be discovered or explored and found on your own on an individual basis. But like, what is humanity's purpose? What's our family, like my family's purpose? What's my like locality's purpose? My society, my community's purpose? What's humanity's purpose? Those are questions that I think become much more real in terms of like the desire for somebody to pursue them when somebody close to you passes away.
yeah, it's almost like that like reminder of mortality. Like
It
it's just
makes life that much more valuable.
yeah, yeah, but it does bring up that laundry list of questions that like I
What
feel like
happens
if
after
you
death?
don't
I think
answer.
that is a mystery, but
Yeah, but I definitely think it's important. Like that's actually the process. I feel like is asking that question to yourself, and then at least it's not a permanent answer, but giving yourself something to work off of. Like for me, Like, just the other day, I give you a quick example. I recently have rearranged some relationships in my life, and I felt like there was a lot of like giving and not a lot of receiving. And actually, we talked about
Huh.
this on this podcast, and so you actually gave me really good advice that I was already following, but like to hear it like out of your mouth and be like, oh, this was the person that I received this advice from, and then I did it. Makes me feel really good. So, but what I'm trying to say is that yeah, I rearranged some relationships and priorities, and I got asked the other day for my time and my energy. Someone asked me to just listen. They needed a few things. I asked them because usually when someone comes to me with a problem, or like, they're like, hey man, I'm having a really hard time with X, Y, and Z. I asked them like, what kind of conversation do you want to have? Like, do you want to have a caring relationship? Do you want me to comfort you? Do you need a mirror? Do you need someone to like so you can see your situation from an outside perspective, or do you want advice? And
And that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about with you asking the deeper question, because I think what most people do there is just immediately try to solve the problem without asking another question to get even more, like that's already sounds like a rude issue. Like, I need somebody to talk to. Okay, well, I'm here to talk to you. But you're asking, okay, well, you need somebody to talk to. Here I am to talk to you. Why do you need somebody to talk to? In what way can I be here to help you the most? And I need to hear that from you before I can even begin to know how to help you.
yeah, that's like step one. What is help to you right now? Like, what is that? What do you need? And he told me actually he needed all three. He was going through a really hard time, where I think he has a lot of chaos in his life and not a lot of good examples or people that have good intentions towards him. And my wife asked me, she was like, Drew, I thought you said you were kind of taking a break from, you know what I mean, like helping in that situation. And I'm like, I am to a degree, but the thing is, like, if someone asks me for help, I help because that is my purpose. Like, I'm here to help. I'm here, like, I have these skills. I've done the training, I've done the work, and without the people, like, that gives my life purpose. Like, currently, that gives my life purpose right now is I do like helping people. That's not my only purpose. I have many other functions. But the thing is, I know because I know that individual that I am one of the few people that would actually ask those questions and could be a mirror. You know what I mean? Without getting emotionally involved. And that's actually a skill that needs to be developed as a person. I recently took a class. But anyone can take it. It's online. It's called peer support specialist. I got my degree. It's only, or I guess not a degree. It's like a little certification for peer support specialty, and it's only like a week class, but it really teaches you how to like how to communicate, but also how to like receive from others that have gone through either like mental health trauma, um, drug abuse trauma, or just like anything, like anyone that has gone through stuff. The whole peer support system is supposed to take all of your past experience and then teach you how to present who you currently are and what you can do in whatever setting that you're in, how you can help that person by becoming a mirror for that person in the sense that you can help them find their goals and define them, and then as a I guess as a third party, you can ask questions to help them develop a path to get to that goal. And my goal, like as a peer support specialist, is to help you as much with my words as possible. Like if I can help you, you walk away feeling like you have a clear sense of direction that you've chosen, that you have decided for yourself, and you feel better because you got to vent a little bit and hear that like, hey, like yeah, I am going through a hard time and it's okay. You know what I mean? Like just that validity. So a lot of people don't even let themselves feel that they're actually going through a really hard time. They minimize it. Um, it helps. Well, I got that degree or that cert. Let me make sure I use it right. I got the cert, and I was actually gonna apply for the VA. Like I was gonna help the VA with this exact job because I done a bunch of PTSD therapy recently. Just to like I needed to get it. I needed to get the full works.
And
Like
you were in the military, right?
yes sir. Yeah. I was 6 years. I worked. I worked intelligence. I did a lot of stuff. We can't talk about on the internet, but it was a lot. I did a lot, and by
But
the
you're
time
still pretty young, right? You're still in your 20s, maybe young 30s.
I'm 30. Oh, actually, my birthday's coming up next week. I'm gonna be 31. So, um, but yeah, I wanted to work with a VA and do the peer support specialist for people going through PTSD and recovering, to reintegrate with the current civilization. And then I found out as soon as I got that certification, they cut the funding for it in my state, so it doesn't even exist anymore. And I was like, you know what? I didn't want to work for you anyway. I'm gonna start my own business. Anyone else
Hmm.
wants some peer support? I'm right here. And this is what I do now. Like this is the next like venture. This is why I haven't been doing a lot of podcasts, is because I've been working on my speaking skills and receiving. Because I feel like
Well,
being
highly
able.
recommend. It's funny that you said that. Literally the only book on this table right here.
Ooh,
Recommended to me by my HR person. Actually, I'm gonna call myself out here. I had a an incident where the day I actually put my dad in the nursing home, I had two. I manage a medical cannabis dispensary.
okay.
Um, I had two of my technicians call out that morning, and can't be but so mad at them. It's not like they knew that I was going to have to do that day, and they didn't know that the other one had called out. Um, but then after two people called out, and then I had to leave in the middle of the day to drive an hour to put my dad in the nursing home. Somebody that was still there decided that they didn't feel well enough to be there, and I like that person as an individual a lot. So it just put me in a tough spot of like I have to do the professional thing of like tell them that they are not really supposed to be leaving without manager approval. And that was a spot where they really shouldn't have been leaving anyway. Our district manager ended up visiting that afternoon, and it was fucking chaos.
Oh my god.
So that made me look really bad when it's like overall the store is running really well. If he had come on any other day, it would have looked amazing. Um, so, anyways, like I said, as on an individual level, I love all of my employees and all the people that I work with. It's tough when, and this is exactly what I told her when I did have the chance to sit down and kind of like rectify my because I said something uh, over a chat over the team's chat that I mean I don't think it didn't get me fired. I mean, so this wasn't like absurd, but it was a little over the top. I was emotional, like the whole thing because of everything that I just told you. It was just like a bad situation, and I definitely did not communicate that communication in a way that was in the best way, right?
Oh,
Um, so when I came back to work the following day, I did one-on-ones with everybody, and exactly what I told that one person who had left early that day was like, "I am a good guy. I'm not a bad communicator when it comes to being a good guy. When everything is going right, I mean, I think anybody's going to be better at that. I think I would even say I'm a podcast host, which doesn't automatically qualify me as a good communicator, but I'm a communicator in general. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And I'm just a friendly person and a good person. Like I've always been the good guy, the nice guy, you know? And it's not as easy to communicate when you have to be the bad guy. Um, and I'm not practiced at it, and therefore I'm not good at it yet. So that's why my HR person recommended this book to me. It's been really, really good. I'm not all the way through it, so I don't want to give my full, stamp of approval on it. But so far, I'm like 5 chapters in. Seems like a really awesome book. I
that
would
sounds.
have to say it's probably it really it gives a lot of examples, which I think is great as far as just people because they actually follow people around in like the corporate world and in other settings and tried to figure out like what differentiates a leader somebody and one of the things that it has been talking about so far is like what certain people what leaders are able to do is they're able to ask those questions that you're talking about. Like one of the examples that they gave was this person, a man, one of the leaders at a group, but they were talking to like the owner or the CEO. The CEO was talking about cutting costs, but they were also building like a new office, and nobody wanted to bring up that this, head was opening this new office that had a bunch of operating costs, and then the same person is like hounding them about cost cutting in all of their departments that they lead,
Hmm.
and everybody's like about to just like not say anything and just go along with shit, and it's probably going to go bad. But then this one guy's like, "Hey, let's talk about this office you're about to open," and he didn't do it in a disrespectful way. He just addressed that issue head on, and that's what it's kind of getting at, is like you have to open up dialogue, and that's sometimes the hard part, is just finding a way to open it up. But if you remain silent, it's just going to fester, and then it's going to come out at another time, and it might explode, or whatever, right?
I will say I had a lot of that training while I was in the military, and I was almost never the good guy. So, like, being the bad guy, and now I'm just like, dude, no matter what I say to you, it's gonna be all right. Because I'm not. I mean, there's no stakes here. There's only positives. If I'm the bad guy, like I'm the, I'm gonna be telling you something that's useful. You're just not gonna like it. I'm gonna tell you nicely as best I can because I want you to be received. But like
Right, and that's the other
not
thing,
used
is
to
like
being
speaking.
the good guy.
That's one of the chapters that I have yet to make it to, but one of the titles of chapter 8, I'm on chapter 5, but chapter 8, the title is "Speak Persuasively, Not Abrasively." I think that one's going to be key for me,
um,
because
how do you, yeah, I was gonna
sometimes
say,
I just
like,
speak my mind, and it's my mind is has yet to soften the communication. Like, I don't know how to word that exactly, but sometimes it just comes right out, and it's real. I'm not lying or anything like that. It's just the delivery isn't effective because it's abrasive and not persuasive. And that's
yeah,
just something that I've learned about myself. I'm really good at. It's just like I was telling that HR lady, like I'm good at. I've been good at every job I've ever had, but I've never managed other people. I've even managed an office that was like a small business, but I was just managing like patient schedules and the nurse practitioner that I was working with, and then the business owner. So there was like a couple of relationships, but I wasn't the boss of any of those. And then I was managing like money and stuff like that. But this is the first time where I've had to manage other people, and that's a challenge that I've yet to encounter. And I'm a quick learner, so I'm confident I'll be fine, but it's been tough to start for sure.
how long have you been doing that?
Officially around Thanksgiving,
Oh,
but
okay,
technically since the end of September.
okay.
I was the assistant manager without a manager for like a month and
How many people?
7 weeks. 8,
8?
9.
That's not so bad. That's like a small
Yeah.
Pokemon party. You can do that.
No, no, honestly, it's not bad. It's not bad, but I've only had really one challenging situation so far, at least challenging to me.
Mm,
That's the other thing, is like I am good at preventing. I know where my strengths and weaknesses lie. Like I'm good at preventing situations from becoming challenging, especially if I'm there. Like my presence, there's never been an issue with me present.
yeah.
All of the issues that have been more difficult to tackle have happened when I'm not there.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, so yeah.
Well, the reason why I asked that is, I wanted to know, like, how how does it feel to be in that position? Like, has your perspective on like the people that you work with changed since that new position?
I mean, my perspective on everything changes all the time, but
Mm,
specific to that, not really. No, I mean, again, I've always kind of been the good guy, you know. So I got along with all of them prior to me becoming manager, and because I had worked with all of them at least to some degree, prior to me becoming manager, like I think if I was a different type of person, that might have made it more challenging. But with me being the type of person that I am, I think that actually has made it less challenging because they all kind of liked me, you know.
okay.
But then there's the degree. Then there's the flip side of that where they'll start to take advantage of you because they know you're cool. You know what I mean? So that has been a balancing act there, to say, look, we still got to do our jobs, people. You know what I mean? Like, y'all can't be making me look bad. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Well, I will say one thing though. Congratulations on becoming a leader. Not many people in the world become that. And it's not easy. Not everyone has it in them.
Oh, and
And
I quit for that's the other thing. Some people, there's one person in particular that might be watching that I haven't talked to since that day. I actually had to quit because like they didn't. It was a weird situation in the middle of November there where like I said, I was an assistant manager without a manager for like a month plus. It was 7 weeks total, but like a month in, I'm like, are they just gonna like drag this out, try to pay me assistant manager wages while I'm managing the store the whole like you start to feel like unappreciated and shit, So I was applying for other jobs. Um, District manager came in, made me an offer that I agreed with, but he was like, to be honest with you, I'm going over HR's head right now, slash around HR, but this is reasonable. I think I can get them to agree to it. So I expected him to hear from him the next day or two. Didn't hear from him. Just went and continued to not hear from him.
mm-hmm,
They didn't even want to take the deal he had offered. So
mm-hmm,
then like I got another job. It was actually going to be a tutor, a math tutor for like third graders. And I was like, I'm going to take this job if y'all don't like make me manager. You know what I mean? Like I've already been working this amount of time and y'all are paying me not what I'm doing basically. So
mm-hmm.
then like the day before I was slated to start this other job, um, they called me and tried to talk me into taking the deal I had already said no to. And I was like, yeah, like no way. Like I cannot even believe you would
Insane.
try that. Yeah. And so I was like, and then he was like, well, if you're not able to take that, like, it might be what it is, it might not be able to get you. And I was like, so they were really playing hardball. So I was like, okay, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So then I went to training. I lit on November 30th. I'll never forget the day, the exact day of that day. November 30th, I started training to be a tutor that morning. And like in my mind, full bore about to be a tutor. And that evening at like 6:30, I got a call from the district manager, and he was like, "They finally caved into the offer I made you. If you're still willing to take it." And I was like, I'm passionate about cannabis, so I'm gonna take it. But like, I still felt a certain type of way. But by now, I'm cool. I'm content with where I'm at. They
Okay.
finally got me an assistant, because then the problem was they didn't backfill my spot as an assistant. So I was like I was an assistant without a manager for a long time. Then I was a manager without an assistant for another 2 months. So at a certain point, I was like, all right, getting up and then that was part of the crucial conversations. Is the first time that I had a little spat. It wasn't a big deal at all, but I had a little spat with HR. Was like, y'all need to get me my assistant like pronto. It's been 2 months. Probably didn't communicate that as well as I thought should have either. And because when we spoke recently and she recommended this book, she did bring that up as well. um but anyways, the point is, things are changing all the time. We learn and grow. And I think having the mindset of just trying to be not even trying, just doing your best, like that's the fourth agreement. And, we talked a little bit about the four agreements one of the other times that we spoke. And I was talking to my friend that actually introduced me to the book forever ago now the other night. And it's like, I've been really focused on that fourth agreement more, because the first three are all mental, but the
Mm-hmm.
fourth one puts all of them into action. Like, you can do your best to be impeccable with your word, but just because of the way I was brought up, or like the experiences I had, my subconscious programming, like I'm not always impeccable with my word, but I do my best and I'm honest about when I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I can do my best to never take anything personally, but I fucking grew up in America where like every television, everything that we experience outside of our house, even if like even if we're in a spiritual household, if you step outside the house, every advertisement, everything is just designed to get you to take it personal, to take something personally, so that you can buy this product, so that you won't feel that way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not making any assumptions. I think that's. I don't know if that's I
That's
think that's a
very
human thing.
times. Yeah, that's tough.
And that's like the one. That's the one agreement I think I personally word it differently. If you read the chapter, I agree with the message in the chapter. But when you're just listing the 4 agreements, I think he could have worded the third one better. I think because he even says, if you read the chapter, literally like the 3rd sentence into that chapter, it says the problem with assumptions is that we believe them. I don't know if that's word for word exactly, but believing your assumptions is really where the real problem comes in. I think it's natural for humans to make assumptions when we don't have all of the information
You
to
have to.
understand a situation. You fill the blanks in with educated guesses or assumptions.
Mhm.
Um, but I think the key is understanding what you know, the facts, and then separating that from these are my assumptions based on these facts that I have, and then holding your assumptions in check and knowing those are assumptions. Like I can't, yes, that might be my best guess for now, but that is totally subject to change because I'm making an assumption. And mentally being able to discern between the two, I think is what's important there. So I think for me, the third agreement is don't believe my assumptions. It would obviously be best to not make them, but
You
like I
can't.
said, I think it's natural. I think it's natural to fill in what we don't know with our best guess,
Yeah.
which
I
is
think
technically an assumption.
the big trick is that yeah, recognizing that they are assumptions and realizing that a lot of our reality or perceptions of reality are hinged off of information that we just don't actually know. A lot of it comes from our programming. So when we're young, whatever we're told is, I mean, that becomes the substrate in which we believe our reality is rooted in. But as you get older, that responsibility becomes increasingly on you to dissect like what parts of your life are fiction and what parts of your life is canon. And that journey it's a journey of self questioning, and it's
Well,
not
it's all a
easy.
story. That's what's interesting is it's all a
Yeah.
story.
Mhm.
It's all a story, and so that's really interesting how you put that because the experience is true,
Mhm.
right? What you experienced really happened, but how you interpret that experience and how you respond to that experience in this moment can change from this moment to the next moment.
Yeah.
Like I look back on a lot of like just trauma in general. Like some people turn trauma into the gift that like made their whole life. Like some of the most successful people in the world became successful because they turned a traumatic situation into a beneficial one by addressing that traumatic. Like they could have just played victim for the rest of their life and they would have had every reason to do that because they really were victimized. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like everybody is truly a victim of some situation. We're all legitimately victims. I'm not trying to deny that or like, you know what I'm saying, push it aside or say it's not important. But I think the way that we address those traumatic situations, rather than saying I'm going to be a victim for the rest of my life, and instead saying like, what could I have done to prevent that or to change that? And even if there was nothing that I could have done, what can I take from that situation to make my life better in this moment because all we really have is this moment.
Yeah. It's true. I can speak to that a little bit. When bad things happen that are out of my control, which is, I mean, it happens. Like bad things will happen to you that are out of your control. And all you can say, and that's the best thing you can say is good. Oh, and then now what? Because it's just another hurdle. Like it's just another thing to get over. And now you may not want to face it today, but you will. And if you don't face it, it will continue to be a mark on your very brain until you actually adjust or confront whatever that trauma is. It's trauma is unavoidable. But how long you hold on to it, that's definitely up to you. And you in having a mindset, a victim mindset is the biggest cripple that I see in America right now. Is that there's so many people that feel like because they've had a victim situation happen, that they no longer have accountability for their actions or how they make others feel or anything. They're just like, I've been victimized and that's it. But the thing is, like, this I learned this shit in the military. Like, no one gives a shit. The
And
earth doesn't
hurt people.
and hurt people, yes. And so this is why it's so important that, like,
Heal
especially
yourself.
you gotta learn the healing. But it's another thing that it's personal healing is not something that's taught easily, and it's different for everybody, and it takes that self question, that self individuation, the getting to know who you are, and asking yourself, like, well, what the fuck happened, like my dog died. Okay, I'll tell you a trauma that happened to me, that happened a long time ago. I had to deal with this. It took me a long time, actually, because I didn't understand it. But when I was young, I had a kitten. I just got this kitten. It was a very beautiful cat. I'm pretty sure his name was Mickey, and I had him for 2 days. The first day, he was kind of sick, so I couldn't really play with him a lot. He was so young. Next day, it was Monday, and I had to go back to school, and I couldn't find my cat. I lived in an apartment in New York at 36 floors up, and could not find my cat, but the window was open. I go downstairs, so I gotta go to school, and I see a bunch of people surrounded my dead cat, and my cat had fallen off the window because I left the window open. Whoever left the window, I don't know. But just seeing that
Mm.
and being like, oh, I still have to go to school today, like that was a trauma, and I didn't realize that. I mean, that's really small, but it's not, because of when it happened and because of the situation and the fact that I couldn't even emotionally touch that at the time because I was
The imprint that it left on your memory.
it hurt. Yeah. And but I didn't let myself feel those emotions until way later, when I started to close my eyes and ask myself, where is the pain? Like, where is the pain here? And what am I avoiding? Like, what am I avoiding touching? You know? Like, and then why? Why am I avoiding that? So for me, I was closing my eyes. I'm like, okay, what am I avoiding? And I see this image, or that sequence, that video, that memory, and I'm like, oh man, that really hurts. Like, but why am I like, why is it hurt? And I was like, well, I remember the kitten was so cute, and I was so excited, and like I really wanted I really wanted to have a new cat, and then it fell out the window, and then, oh, I understand why it really hurts. It's because no one gave a shit that my cat died. Like, no one cared. Like, no one sat down and was like, Jarrell, are you okay? No one kissed my boo-boos when that happened. It was like, oh, we got to go to school. All this stuff, life just had to keep going. So like that, my pain didn't get addressed. And so it wasn't until way later, when I slowed down enough and I did this questioning system, and I looked inside myself and I was like, dude, where's this pain? And then I realized that, like, okay, yes, like the pain of my cat dying, that I did get I felt that at the time. But I didn't understand that the real reason why I was feeling bad was because I felt like no one was acknowledging my emotions. And I realized that, like, just that instance actually changed the way that I perceived a lot of other things. And it's just these small little events that are seemingly small, but they change the way that you
Yeah.
perceive a lot of social interaction going forward. So, and then other things happen, more traumas happen, and I feel like more people didn't acknowledge my emotions, and I tried less and less, because I mean, if I have problems or I have emotions and no one's addressing them, and it didn't happen when I was younger, and it didn't happen when this next thing happened, and the next thing, and the next thing, you learn that, okay, my emotions don't matter, and that's the process of me moving my locus of control from inside of myself to outside of myself. Like, okay, well, then if no one's gonna address my wounds, I'm not gonna address my wounds because I'm not individuated yet at this point. I must be, like, my job must be to tend to other people's wounds, because that's the thing I'm lacking. And one of the things that we wind up doing as just human beings is that we become the thing that we're lacking. Whatever was lacking in our childhood, we become that. Like, we fill that gap. And whether we understand it or not, like, it kind of is a thing. And you can choose, but unconsciously you will become that thing that you're missing. So if you are a person that was very lonely, and, like, I mean, you'll become your own friend, or not. Like, if you're a person that didn't have any money, well, you might become a really good source of income, or not, depending on how you take it. Unless
But you're gonna pursue it more.
you will pursue it. Yes, for me,
It's
it
gonna be
was
more of a focus.
emotional mirrors. Like, I fell in love with wanting to do that, And I mean, to this day, I understand myself very well, but also I feel like because of that experience, because I had to sit down and unpack all these traumas for myself, and then I got the honor of unpacking traumas with other people that felt safe enough to share them with me, and then explain to me how they felt from their perspective when talking to me, like how I got the 360 view, and I realized that I did wind up becoming the thing that I was missing, which was an emotional mirror. And thank God, thank God, thank God my cat died. I'm sorry, it sucks.
Yeah. Well,
And cat died for a reason. Why? Because now I got all the skills. I did like that life didn't end. It continued right inside of me. And through all those traumas and those other events that happened, like they all happened because there are lessons for me to learn. There are lessons to me for me to learn about myself and how I handle myself, and then on just how I feel. Like how else are we gonna understand our complex emotions if we
well,
never
I think this kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier a little bit, and I think trauma might even be more of the root than death. Like I think death is just an experience where we can all relate to experiencing a deep trauma, right? But I
Mhm.
think trauma might be really what triggers us to ask, why am I here? Or why are we here? Which gets back to purpose, right? So, I think trauma might even be more of the root of that. Death is an example of a traumatic experience, but I think it is trauma that sparks that, why am I here? Like, what is the purpose of my existence, number one, but existence itself, number two,
Yeah.
and our existence as humanity as a kind of in between.
It also brings up the borders, the boundaries of what you're able to accept. Because imagine this, you're in an abusive situation, but you've been in that situation all your life. So you don't understand that that's actually abuse. And then one day it gets pushed too far and you're like, "Well, why? Why am I experiencing this thing? Like why is it that when I go to Walmart, all my foods are poisoned? Why is it that, there's fluoride in my water? Why is it that we have all these systems? Like why do schools mirror jails? Why is it that like why is things so messed up?" And then you start to realize, "Oh wait, I'm not the problem. I'm the solution." Yeah, I can see the fact that they're messed up, and I can talk about it, and then hopefully it can change. Or you can just recognize that, like, I've had enough. Like, this is enough. I don't want this anymore. Whatever this is, whatever the question is, I don't want shit in my water. I don't want extra chemicals in my food. I don't want these government organizations all up in my stuff. Like when we say no, that's also part of that problem that comes with trauma, with experience. Honestly, we can change the word trauma because trauma, I mean, it exists. It does. But I feel like we use that as a blanket statement for anything that is adversary to our happy state of blissful ignorance. And I think that we need to lead into, like, when we lead into experience or hard things, I mean, you get hard. Like you get stronger. And if we just say that, oh,
Well,
these
that's
things,
that's the result of either avoiding trauma or facing it. Is I think what you're getting at. Like avoiding trauma, repressing trauma, is just going to lead to more traumatic experiences because you're not addressing the issue. You're not addressing the issue. You're not addressing whatever trauma is that. Yeah, I feel like trauma builds on itself, right? So you're either going to face it and learn how to deal with it because, like you said, it's unavoidable. You're gonna face more of it. So you're either taking care of it by facing it and addressing it, or you're avoiding it, which is just taking an already existing set of trauma or traumas, and then it's just going to grow with every new experience that you have because you haven't addressed the core one that's still there. You see what I'm
yeah,
trying to get at?
it builds a web, like a cause and effect, and eventually you wind up so far off the mark, and it's all because you just failed to address the one thing, and instead it just built up and built up and built up. One of the things that, recently I've really taken a step back from my presence on the internet, because I enjoy it. I love the internet, but I feel like, though it connects me to a lot of important people like us, and we're having this very special time that I don't think could have happened any other way besides through the internet. Um, at least right now, I think that it's an escape from the things that we're supposed to be doing right now in our present life. Like, what am I avoiding? Like, what am I avoiding by being on the internet? What am I avoiding by consuming YouTube media? What am I avoiding every time I'm scrolling on Instagram? What am I truly avoiding? And when I ask myself that question, I do this every once in a while, especially if I'm feeling sad. Like, I love that. Like, if I'm feeling sad, it's a day I'm gonna get shit done. So I ask myself, what am I avoiding? And it turns out sometimes I'm avoiding just going outside. Sometimes I'm avoiding the gym. Sometimes I'm
So funny that
avoiding.
you said the going outside part. That was what I laughed at because that was actually why I scheduled the pod for later in the day. Is because like when I'm at work, I don't get like but so much sunshine. I'll literally hang my head out the drive-through sometimes just to let the sun hit my forehead, you know.
Yeah,
But like on my days off, I'm outside, bro. I'm outside until the sun goes down. Like right now, it's cool. I can be on the internet, I can pod, whatever. But like, I was outside all day, dude, and I love it. Like I'm in a better mood because of it, you know.
that's good.
I don't know. I'm a sun worshiper.
Me
I
too.
wouldn't call it a religion necessarily, but
But I
uh,
could.
it's one of my practices for sure.
One of my favorite things to do is, especially during sunset or sunrise. I love like I just like sit down next to and I put my head like under my window. If I'm not outside, like I'm doing something, um, I will definitely just sit there and like I just like drink in the sun, like just. And
Mm.
I'll tell the sun, I'll talk to it. I was just like, just pour into me, give me that life because I need it. And a lot of the times, you when you ask for stuff, it helps. It helps receive. And I feel like
I
I
mean,
always
look at
get.
animals, man. Look at cats. Like if the
Yeah,
cat's inside and the sun is shining through the window, they're laying in that sunspot. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Dogs do the same thing. It's something. It's something there. It's something about it. And when for me, and I thought I was weird, which I am, but not in this specific instance, actually, because I thought it was super weird. I looked it up, and it's like I know this is a very wide range, but it's because there's only a few studies done on it, and there's a large statistical margin of error. But somewhere between 18 and 36% of people sneeze after being inside and then getting exposed to direct sunlight. I'm one of those people. So like, but it feels good. It's not a bad thing. It's like it hits me and chew, and I get all the like. I sound like an indigenous person, but all the negative spirits come out, and it's just like the
Yeah,
sun is just cleansing me from the inside out.
that's
Great, I
good.
love the sun. Yeah,
I mean, I believe it. Like, I'm a pretty open minded dude. So when you say you sneezing out the spirits, like I'm like, damn, get it, like, because I'm serious. Like I mean, I believe it. I've seen it.
yeah. No,
Like,
I googled it one time. It's sun sneezing is what I googled, but it's actually the medical term for it is photic sneeze reflex, and it
yeah.
says it can.
I saw.
I was 1% off. It affects 18 to 35%.
Oh, okay.
But its exact mechanism is not well understood, which to me sounds like it's something too spiritual for them to disclose.
That's usually the case. My hypothesis honestly was that when the sun hits your eyes, like I feel like it makes your brain light up in a certain way, and I don't know, triggers your nose because fuck yeah. And
There's the
and
darkness, just the darkness has to flee. Achoo.
yeah, it's got to go out of somewhere, and I mean the nose is the best. Let's go. But I mean, when it comes to the sun though, I do believe that it's so important. Like it's super important that we go out and enjoy it. Um,
The light of the
when it,
world. I
huh?
mean, it's literally the light of the world, the alpha, the omega. I
Yeah,
mean, literally, if you really do your deep dive, Jesus is nothing other than a metaphor for the sun. His 12 disciples are the 12 constellations. Dying on the cross is just that's where the sun is in the vicinity. The the sun is in the vicinity of the Southern Cross during the winter solstice, December 21st, and then he's dead for 3 days. Dies on the 21st, the shortest day of the year. Dead for 3 days, 22nd, 23rd, 24th. Risen again, December 25th. I mean, yeah, there's so many astrological and cosmological, uh, uh
significances.
yeah,
When
parallels is the word I was looking for.
I've actually that's something I'd love to talk about a little bit more. Because I've recently been asked to explain like how I like what is my understanding of this world around me, and I had to come to the conclusion that I believe that the world is mostly mimetic. So I believe that like a lot of the stuff that we're experiencing, I mean, we're inside of our own minds. Like we're perceiving our reality from inside of our own minds, using our five senses as the vectors for whatever the vibrations are. Like that, we're getting input information, and then this is the projection from our mind that we are enjoying. Um, and I
I
could be
think there's
wrong.
something to that. I think there's something. No, I think there is something to that. I think when I say most people,
Mhm.
I include myself in this. I think all people live in what you're talking about, their virtual reality, in their mind, in their story, right?
Yeah.
However, I do think that there is a reality outside of our stories.
Oh yes. Oh yes. So if I were to complete my thought, it's that when we talk about like the way that we perceive stimuli or like perceive events in our lives, I believe that it does affect the way people see. I do believe actually that their experience of things, regardless of what they believe, is very, very true to them because of the way that the brain, especially the left side of the brain, is very mimetic. Like it takes one thing and it's like this is that, and it tries to keep your consciousness or your ego like within the confines of that story. But once you realize that that's the case, when you close your eyes, when you start to connect on the waves or on the spiritual level, you can start to realize that like I don't know how to explain it. Besides that, you can go off the story. You can go off of the story,
Ah,
or but you can also know the story that you're in. That's another thing. You can change stories. You can change the channel. Just how you change your mind, you can change the channel. And when you
well, it
change,
starts with awareness. I see what you're
yes,
saying.
yeah,
When you're aware that you're living in a story, you can begin to change the story. But that
yeah,
takes you to that other place that you're talking about, that spiritual place that's a little more mystical and hard to explain and spiritual. But there is where you can tinker with your subconscious and change the way you not only tell your story uh, to yourself, but also the way that you interact with what you are now aware is a secondary character in other people's stories, right? Because you're a primary character in your story. Yes, you're the storyteller in your story, and that you can have the level of awareness to change your subconscious and everything that I said the half of what I said. Second half of what I said is recognizing that you're a secondary character in other people's story and using that awareness to adjust how you interact with those people.
yes. That's the thing that like once you come to that awareness, I feel like after I came to that awareness, I had an even deeper love for listening to others because I realized that people are literally walking stories. Like they have so much that they've experienced and they've gone through, some things that are trauma, some things that are good, some things that are bad, some things they're excited about, things that only they would know. Like, and so when they open their mouths, like I just can't help but fucking listen. Like I'm just like, okay, like this is the only time that I get to peer into your world a little bit. I'm not even gonna be in your life very long. Me and you. I mean, I've only seen you once, and it's been almost a year. And but I feel like I get to know you so well because I get to listen. Like I actually had a list of questions that I really wanted to ask you. Like, 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 how's Virginia? Have you gone back? Are you there still? Like I know that's where you were born, but I don't know. How is Virginia?
Yeah, I'm still here, man. Virginia is a wild place for real. With your military background, you probably already are hinted at that a little bit, but it's the naval base in Norfolk, the DC being basically in Virginia. All of the intelligence agencies are basically in Northern Virginia between the CIA and NSA, National Reconnaissance Office. Um, it's a really interesting state. You got the coastline, right? Then you got Central Virginia, where I'm at, aka Piedmont region, which is flat hilly. But I mean, if anybody from the mountains would laugh at me calling it hilly, it's mostly flat, right? And
Mm,
then you got Appalachia, So you got three very different geographies. You got, I mean, it's a crazy state. I'm here in Richmond. Federal Reserve is here in Richmond. One of
Yeah.
the 12 Federal Reserve banks is here. Um, we had the monument thing go down a few years ago, where they were taking down the
Yeah.
monuments on Monument Avenue. That was, kind of I would say it's a polarized state when it comes to politics for sure. There's the cities which are, super left, super blue. I will say, fortunately, from my perspective, it seems that more and more people are just disillusioned with politics in general, which is good. I think a good thing. Something that happened at work the other day that I was just like, oh, I knew I liked her, but I love her. She's one of my awesome employees. I won't name her name, but she had a patient that was like trying to convince her to go to the primaries and vote after work or whatever. And one of my other coworkers was like, "Was that after after the patient left?" She's like, "Was that lady trying to convince you to go vote?" And she goes, "Yeah, like that would change anything." And I'm just thinking to myself, there are people out here that understand that
Yeah.
it's just bullshit. It's all bullshit, and
Yeah.
it's hard to talk about at work in certain environments like that, because there might be somebody else who looks at you crazy or whatever. Sometimes you just don't even want to deal with it. But I could tell just by her, like the way she said that, I was like, people are waking up. People are seeing. But regardless, even people who I would say are not political, they still have a worldview, right? And so um, you still have a certain way that you interact with the world based on what you believe about the world. Um, and so even when you become disillusioned with politics, I think people still have a certain, um, if you grew up in the country, you're probably going to lean more local economics, local relationships, local trade, like take politics out of it. You're still probably going to want to like you're going to see the world as a more localized relationship based um, society or community, right? Whereas if you're from the city, you're probably going to see more as like federal, and even your local level feels less local, right? Because you
Yeah.
don't know the people that are at city council or whatever, right? Like you don't, even if you don't know them from a rural area, you probably know their last name, or their kid, or you know what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
it's just a different world. I grew up in the country and I've lived in the city since 2007. Like I've experienced the differences, and Virginia has, right at 50% population rural, 50% population,
Oof. Right now.
757 Richmond and Northern Virginia. So
Mm.
it's a really, really interesting area. That's the only way interesting. If I had to boil it down to one word, it's an interesting place to live for sure.
Well, I'm here in Arkansas, in Fayetteville.
That's what I thought.
And I mean, it's pretty well, the thing is, like, the country, the state is red. But this area that I'm in is very college, so like there's a lot of blue. And everyone seems a little confused. Honestly. I've asked people because I'm just curious. Like, sometimes I like to know what people think about certain things. Like, I'll ask them political things just to see what they think they know and what they actually know. And most people here are just they're simple people. Like they know basically what the news says, but like they don't really put a lot into it regardless. Like, they just know that they like the simple things. And even when it comes to the college kids, um I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, I've only met lefties when it comes to the college people here, and they're scared. They're scared, which is strange because they're here, like in a place that's nice. And if you really look, like a lot of the places that are not doing very good are very blue. And I'm not saying that red's the right answer because they like war, and they'll squander our money in all types of different ways too. But I will say that the conservative values, um, line up better with like a more harmonious society right now compared to the things that the left leaning is leaning towards right now, which is a lot of control and squandering of the money and all this stuff. And I think that it's been used as a vector of radicalism, um, through our news and our media, and through our schools mostly, to, I mean, pretty much like wipe out people's, to abolish the other side. Like it's a color war, and mental.
Yeah.
And
No,
I
I know I know what you're saying, because where before I get into this, I want to say I am not Republican or Democrat, uh,
Mm,
and I am so disillusioned with political system in our country that it's hard to even talk about. Um, but what I think you were getting at right there is something that I see is diversity at every level except thought, at every level except worldview. We want a Jewish person, an Islamic person, a black person, women, transgender, blah blah blah. But you all got to think the way we think, right?
yeah, yeah.
You
There's a
can't have. There's no diversity of thought. There's no diversity of ideas. You've got you. We'll be diverse across genders, across sex, across race and nationality, as long as y'all agree to our ideas, as long as you agree to our policies.
I think that's very spooky. That's not a good look. Especially if you hold different beliefs, and then they will try to paint you or put you in a box of anything that they don't like. So if
Right.
you
Oh,
don't
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my God. Try.
you're a conspiracy
Are
theorist,
you white? You're not white, are you?
no.
Well, try being a white dude in this world.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it's tough. Honestly, like I look like every minority
You fucking Nazi pig, blah, like every. Oh my God, you'll get it all, dude.
because
But I mean, and it's even if you're just suggesting something out of love,
yeah,
it's crazy. It
it's
is
fear.
crazy out here.
And I think a lot of that fear is the problem is it's because of our media. And it's because our media is controlled. Because I personally don't believe that our government even exists. Um, I fully believe that this company or this, I mean, it's a company. This country has been taken over. That's the reason why I left the Air Force, by the way. Stopped doing my special intelligence job because I realized that like, we were the Empire from Star Wars. And on the inside, I mean, we had a patriotic reason to do whatever. I mean, that's the story that we told ourselves was not the reality of what was happening. And when you started to question things, and when you started to engage with that truth, that reality of like, hey, like it's more than the propaganda. Like there are people dying over there. It's not even about dying. It's not even about that. It's the fact that they're going to send you over there, and the reason why they're sending you anywhere is not what you think. It's almost
Not what
always
they're
money.
telling you. That's for damn sure.
And so in a sense, they're throwing you like you are the fodder. They're selling you to go make money. Like you're the bitch. And as much as there's a lot of like gun ho, I love America. And I have a heart that like I want to protect the things that are sacred. And I truly would rather see peace than war any day. But I'll defend my home. But I realized that we weren't defending our home. We were going to other people's homes and setting up all types of stuff. And the thing is that like we also do things to ourselves and then blame it on other places so that we can engage with
Like
them.
9/11.
Yes, actually very much so like 9/11. You know, that was actually one of the topics we talked about in the last podcast. I asked you what do you think 9/11? Like what happened? You didn't give me a straight answer, but we talked about a lot of different things. I would love an update on that question. What do you think
And
happened on
I'm still in the same spot.
9/11?
So actually, I have a podcast guest on here. She's been on 3 times now. I've been a guest on hers once. She goes by Human Vibration on Twitter. Um, Her theory is starting to become more and more appealing to me, and that is that there was nobody in the Twin Towers at the time. It was explosives. The airplane was CGI. All the people jumping out of the buildings was CGI. She's a big CGI. She's one of the big CGI conspiracy theorists, which I don't like the term conspiracy theorist. Truth seekers, I think is at least more accurate. But again, I don't like branding things like
Mm,
that.
mm.
Organic movements are hard to brand because branding itself is not like an organic mechanism.
No,
Uh,
yeah.
but I will say, as far as And then it's funny because the very last episode I did, I proposed this idea to my guest, and he was like, "She's fucking stupid." Even though he believes it was a conspiracy, he was like, "Of course there was. It really happened. Like, yeah, we were lied to about it." And he's like, he's watched Zeitgeist and Loose Change and stuff like that, but he thought that was just way too far out there, that there was not even people in the buildings. But I have not looked into the evidence personally enough to decide one way or another. But one of the things that she said, and that could be looked into deeper if somebody wished to do that, was that all the hospitals in New York in that area were like expecting all these people, firefighters and all the rescue people and all the injured bodies, right, to be flooding these hospitals, and like nobody showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That's
so
as
again, my guest on the last podcast, he was like, "Well, you can look that up. I'm sure they were." Well, have anybody actually looked it up? I don't know. I haven't even since then. But knowing what I know about the degree that they're willing to go to lie to us, it wouldn't surprise me. Is what I'm getting at. It wouldn't
well,
surprise me
also,
if there was nobody even in those buildings. The plane was CGI. The people jumping out of the buildings was CGI. It was a controlled demolition. The Twin Towers would be the hardest one to believe out of those, because Building 7 clearly was that way, right? The Pentagon, clearly some suspicious shit going on with the black box security footage going missing. So the CGI story there, and controlled demolition there, and the fact that they covered up all the debris at the
yeah,
Pentagon. I mean, again, her theory kind of aligns. The hardest one to explain would be the Twin Towers, because you see the footage of the planes going into the buildings, et cetera, et cetera. But all the plane crashing in the field, Building 7 and Pentagon, those are easy to explain according to her theory. And then the
yeah.
Twin Towers, based on what she said about the hospitals being prepared for this rush and nobody showing up. I'm not saying I believe her outright, but like, knowing what I know about the length that they're willing to go to deceive people, it just would not surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if
There was a
the
lot on the
people who,
line.
if people that made Loose Change were paid by people to get them on this other conspiracy line of thinking. And then you have the conspiracy theorists against the standard story and all of its bullshit because it was just a CGI psyop. I mean, again, I don't know.
I
But
will say,
that is seeming more and more plausible to me.
I think that's a very colorful theory, and I believe that the answer is definitely. I think that the CIA definitely had something to do with it. There's a reason why
I
Hollywood.
will to give my other guest credit. I was like, we were definitely being lied to. And he was like, oh yeah, we're definitely being lied
Yeah.
to.
We all
We can
agree
all
there.
agree on that.
We all agree there. I actually do agree with you a lot on the CGI, by the way. I mean, they faked the moon landing, like, and we still haven't figured
And that wasn't even CGI. That was just Stanley
No,
Kubrick magic.
it's real bad looking. Like, if you really look, you're like, who the fuck was taking the video? That's it. Like,
I mean,
who?
it's like covered in aluminum foil and shit. Like it looks goofy.
But
It looks goofy. Anybody who believes that made it to the moon,
yeah,
I
it
want
does.
what you're smoking, bruh.
Yeah, we can't do it anymore. We can't go there anymore for some reason. We
Oh,
can't go back.
but we did. We did. Did
Oh
you
yeah,
hear about this?
when?
Just like a couple weeks ago, they
Oh
claimed it.
yeah.
There's no footage or anything, but they claimed it.
Okay.
You didn't see this? This was
No,
big news a week or
I've
two
been
ago.
under a rock. Like, I've been so busy with my
Let
own.
me see.
Tell me all about it. Yeah,
Landing
I'm
on
interested. We made it back
moon.
to the moon, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Let's see. It doesn't look like I can share my screen. I was going to share my screen, but yeah, NASA back to the moon. Yep. So here we go. It's funny. I searched NASA back to the moon, and it's still acting like we haven't been back. But it was just in the news a few days ago. Okay, so I guess it wasn't a person flight or whatever,
Okay.
a manned mission.
Mm.
But either way, I mean, is space even real? I don't know.
I I actually have big things about space too. I don't think that shit's real the way that we say it is. I think there's a
I mean,
lot of things
people
like
simply can
theory.
space exist in a vacuum? They
Exactly.
say space is a vacuum, but space doesn't exist. In, literal space doesn't exist in a vacuum. So how is space a like that? Some things just don't add up, man.
I mean, if the sun is made of fire and the space is a vacuum, how's the fire lit? Like, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things to go. I mean, the chemical reaction you can say, sure, but there's a lot of weird things that don't make a lot of sense. And it's a lot of it, like we said, is it goes down to what we were programmed as kids, what the narrative was when we were young, and then it's up to us
But
as
all right,
grown up individuals
I
to
think you can
question.
agree with what I'm about to say. Yes, yes, that's exactly what I was just about to get to. Is I am the first one to say I don't know for a lot of the stuff, right? But
Yeah.
I think that makes me a lot less dangerous than the people who know that, oh, of course the Earth isn't flat. You fucking uneducated, you know what I'm saying? Like dimwit, whatever the fuck they want to call you. Of course, you know, of course space is real, you dumbass. Of course dinosaurs, fossils are real. Fucking conspiracy theorists.
Do you believe that the
You know,
Earth is?
like I don't know. I think we live in a hologram. I think this is a video game.
Yeah, I think
So
that's the best way.
when you start looking at it that way,
Uh-huh.
a lot more possibilities come into play. Because if we're in a video game, then it's like you could just be change. Every individual can just be changing the channel. All of these realities could exist in one way or another. It could be flat Earth, sphere Earth, space doesn't exist. Sun is local, sun is not local. I mean, if we're in a video game, the video game could just be tricking everybody. You know, just like if a tree falls in the woods and nobody hears it, did it really fall? I mean, perception. I think we live in a perceived world.
I think it's a
I
perceived
think
world
that
based off of those narratives, mimetic.
yeah,
It's the
yeah,
it
and
tells us
I've talked about I've talked about that on the podcast before too. The reason that I talk about worldview and I emphasize questioning your worldview so much is that when you think about ourselves in a computer analogy, right? Um, what we believe is like our programming. And so our output is going to be based on our programming. The way that we interact with the world is going to be based. We're not going to do things that go against our beliefs. We're not going to
mm,
act in ways that don't align with how we see the world and what we believe about the world. But if the way that we see the world and the things that we believe about the world are false or based on lies, then
mhm.
our output is not going to be aligned with reality, to,
Yeah,
to say the least.
well said. Yeah, I think in that situation, the only way to escape the game is to meditate, control the construct. You know, it's the only thing that you
When
have
you
to.
say meditate, I'm assuming, and I want to be, and instead of assuming, I'm going to ask you the question that you mean silencing the voice, escaping
Eh,
the storyteller.
that's the beginning. That's the beginning. Um, I do a lot of meditation, and that's the first step. Is yeah, you gotta make peace with that guy 'cause he talks a lot. When you finally get to be on the, because it's like, for me at least, my brain for the longest time felt like I was in control of my body, but my mind was just on fire, like doing whatever it wanted to do. And I felt like it was like two,
That's
like the
Toltec.
Pisces time, like two fish going in different directions. I feel like we are just fighting for dominance, you know. And one guy is like party, and the other guy is like sleep. The other one is like question your reality. The other one's like Christianity. Like it was a lot of internal conflict. And it wasn't until I had to sit down and I was like, okay, well, what do you have to say? Like, yeah, I mean, you talking all this time. What do you really have to say? I'm listening. I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna take notes too. Let's get to the brass tacks. Like, what are you trying to tell me? And pretty much it told me that I believed a bunch of shit about myself, about the world around me. That like that inner voice was actually trying to help me. It just like kind of how we talked about it. Like, you know, it doesn't talk to you very kindly if you don't know how to speak well to yourself. it's really hard to want to even listen to yourself because he's an asshole. But it's you. It's your asshole. you know.
That's where, okay, so everything
But
that you were saying right there was reminiscent of the Toltec for me. But when
uh
you said it's you,
huh.
it's only you if you agree.
Truth. Yes. There's more. There's more to it. That's why
Because
you hit on that.
if you're the one talking,
Mhm.
who's the one listening?
You. We have a bicameral mind. There are two sides of ourselves. We have this little tiny person called the ego that we think we understand, which is that lives in the fiction of the mind.
But
We live.
I think you're right when the listener agrees.
Yep. I mean that
But
makes
I
sense.
think they can be two different entities if the listener chooses to disagree.
Yeah. There's. I mean, you can identify with everything that thing says. Because I mean,
And
there's many things.
I think a lot of those thoughts are not necessarily yours. Like you might be regurgitating them mentally in that moment, but that thought didn't originate with you. That's just something that you're picking up on as a transmitter, right? As an antenna, you're picking up on that thought at that moment because you might have heard it from somebody else at some other point in time. You might have read it, you might have heard it on TV, whatever.
Mhm.
But because of whatever you're experiencing, that thought came into your mind. But you could disagree with it.
Yes.
And at that and in that example, I don't think that voice is you. It
But
kind of
oh, it
is. It
is.
kind of
But oh,
is in the sense that you're regurgitating it,
uh-huh.
but you're regurgitating somebody else's original idea or thought, and then you yourself are disagreeing with it. So you're choosing to not identify with that idea or belief.
Why I have this idea that we're all actually very mentally connected, like more so than we like to be comfortable with actually. And so when that moment happens where your mind is telling you something that you disagree with, I mean that's part of that mental chatter. That is the mind figuring out whether it's real or not real. Because I do believe our brain.
I guess what I'm getting at though is we decide who we are.
I was just about to say, we are Turing machines in that sense. Like we are biological Turing machines trying to determine reality from fiction constantly based off of what we've absorbed in our past and what's currently happening in our moment, and then also our thoughts about that moment. That blends together to create this thing that we believe is the right now. But I fully believe that when that's why I believe the power of conversation is so strong. I believe that we actually do a lot of work on a spiritual level when we have these conversations because we're clearing up a lot of that chatter, especially people that are in cities. You know what I mean? We're so closely together. Think of how intermeshed our I call it the noosphere, but the sphere of ideas, of human ideas, is
The new sphere,
intermeshed.
yeah. That's an idea. That's a I do have a philosophy degree, which I kind of have my own. I don't know. I think academia has actually done more to discredit philosophy and philosophical thinking and spiritual thinking than it has to um, benefit it. However, it does still exist, and so it hasn't been completely snuffed out yet. The PH in PhD stands for philosophy of. So, like when you get a PhD in medicine, for example, that means you've gotten a degree in the philosophy of the doctorate of medicine or whatever. Um, Philosophy is literally the first discipline in education in human history.
Mm,
So, at its root, I love philosophy. However, I have this kind of yin yang relationship with it because I think the way it's taught actually discourages people from engaging with it. And I think that's by design because
mm,
we're all naturally philosophers. Like humans are naturally philosophers. That's part of our purpose is to not. And I don't even like the word think. I think it's. I believe. I feel that it's more of just a cultivation of awareness. That's a really good way to word that. Actually, a cultivation of awareness right? So philosophy is actually a verb.
Mm,
You do philosophy. And that's why I
mm,
like the word cultivate, because it's not your thoughts that you're cultivating per se. It's how you use your thoughts and how you turn your thoughts off at will
mhm,
in certain situations, right? It's more of a wisdom thing than an intelligence thing, right?
mhm.
And I think, the garbage man that I interact with when I go to the dump, I think, people that are in these professions that stereotypically might be thought of as lower IQ or less prestigious careers, they're philosophers. I see them as philosophers, and somebody that went to a prestigious fucking bullshit ass rich people liberal art college and took philosophy and doing philosophy with those people, it makes me not like philosophy as much, because I feel like they're actually turning the regular person away from philosophy, which is the worst thing that you can do for philosophy.
Yeah. When it comes to philosophy, at least the subject as a whole for me, I know I'm like I mean I got it. But when it comes to like I think that philosophy is one of the most important things we can do is develop a personal philosophy. I'm not saying that you have to keep it forever, but I think that at every
Oh,
point,
change is the only constant. If you
yes,
want a philosophy that reflects reality, your philosophy better be changing with reality.
yeah. But there's actually, I mean, there are some people who don't change their philosophy based on reality,
Oh, yeah,
and they
yeah.
can still do exactly what like it just really depends. Like because philosophy is to me it's like changing up the video game that you're playing. You know what I mean? Like if you have a philosophy on life that like okay, my philosophy of life is to help whoever asks for it. Like let's just say that for like a simple example. Like that's my nindo. That's my way of living. You know what I mean? That's my philosophy. I'm here to help. And when I see someone and I can do it, if it doesn't take away from my ability to do it in the future, then I should do it. And that's my philosophy. Now, life is going to challenge that philosophy, and it will either break
Yeah. And
or
I think civilization itself is set up to discourage people like you from helping others.
yeah.
Like our society is set up to beat you into submission to the point where you only have time and energy to help yourself.
I see it. I see it.
And that's what makes people dependent on the system, right?
Yeah.
That's why they don't want people living tribally, and they, genocided all the indigenous people because they lived in such a way that everybody helped everybody. There's that story I'm sure you've read on the internet about this anthropologist that went to some tribe in Africa, and he, set up this game where, there was like a picnic basket with a full meal, like a gigantic meal in it, and like they put the kids in groups of three or pairs or whatever, and he was like, whichever group finds it, it's all yours, right?
Mm,
And when they found it, they called everybody else over to eat it, and they split it. And even though when they split it among their whole tribe, it really wasn't that much food.
yeah.
He was like, "Why did y'all do that? Y'all could have had a whole meal for yourselves." And they were like, "I'm not. I can't. I'm not fed if my people aren't fed. Like I'm
Mm,
not whole if my people aren't whole." Like they literally see themselves as part of their tribe. Like they are what you're talking about. They're
yeah.
helpers. Like they're being what, in my opinion, we are born to be naturally, which is
Yeah.
a social creature living in a social organization that
Mhm.
where everybody knows everybody, And I'm not saying that we don't interact with other tribes and we never interact with strangers, right? I mean, that's part of life too. That's fun. I do think the way we've set up the civilization, we've done it there's some good reasons for it, but the way we're doing it is clearly off course at this point, and I think we need to adjust our course. Um, but what I'm getting at is the helping. I think in a lot of indigenous cultures, there is no word for help
Mhm.
because it's just what you do. It's
Yeah,
just how
yeah.
you live.
You see something,
There's
you
no
just
word for it. It's
yeah,
just part of how you live. You don't not help. Like like helping is just what you do. It's just part
yeah.
of your existence.
You would think that would be something that people just know, but the thing is that people have bad philosophies. I would say the philosophy of Darwinism is a bad philosophy. It is not dog eat dog out there. Nature is in balance. Like it has to be, or it would eat itself dry. There is not wolves going
100%.
to war with each other. I mean, they fight each other, sure, but they don't be killing like that. They're not eating everything.
100%.
Like
100%. Yeah, one of my favorite stories from Daniel Quinn, one of his books, he's talking about lions and antelopes, and he's like, look at the way yeah, lions kill antelopes, right? I'm not saying he's like I'm not saying that there was never murders across the, I'm not saying members of this tribe never killed. There were small skirmishes, there were small tribal battles, but guess what never happened? There was never a tribe that wiped out another tribe because they didn't live the way they wanted them to live. And that's the
right,
same thing with antelopes and tigers and lions. Is lions will eat the antelope, sure, but they eat the antelope because they're hungry. They don't eat the antelope because they hate antelope. That's
yeah,
hilarious. They keep the antelope alive because they need to feed. They need to in other tribes back in the day, they would keep other tribes alive because that's diversity. You're going to intermarry with them. You don't. There are benefits to interacting with other tribes too for commerce reasons, et cetera, et cetera. But it was never killed, exterminate them because they don't live the way we live. That only one tribe did that, and they, obviously we're still here. So
I mean, amen on that one, I guess. But I think it comes down to the fact that we have something that most animals do not, which is that ego that takes things personally. Like, lions don't take it personally. I'm sure the antelopes don't take it personally. I mean, it's still trauma. I'm sure antelope always going to be scared of a lion after he sees his brother get eaten. Like, I mean, that's for sure. But I don't think the antelopes like that lion had a personal vendetta against. I'm gonna fuck these lions up in like 3 years after I start working out. Like,
yeah,
like it just doesn't happen that way because it's true. It's not personal. And I think also we can still extend that to the situation that we're in, where like our government, what's happening to us is happening because we allow it. It's not personal. We're just being robbed. It's not personal. We're just being abused. Why? Because we
what do
haven't
you
told
think
to
about
stop.
human nature?
Mhm. What do I think
Human,
about it?
yeah, like human nature. Is it like because this kind of ties to what we're talking about, right? Like, is it natural to be a helper? Because that's actually this is really a root thing within like academic intellectual debate, right? Is human nature a lot? Hobbes, neo Hobbesian still dominates most of academia, intellectuals, and Hobbes is the one that said, life is short, nasty, brutish, blah blah. Uh, so they say human nature is inherently selfish, dog eat dog, like what you're talking about. So yeah, asking like, what do you think of human nature really gets at what we're talking about here. And there's another story that I have, but I want to hear your answer first.
Well, I'll talk to Hobbes and then I'll tell you my answer. The reason why we have philosophers in academia that think that way is because they're scared people. They can't. They feel like that's
Scarcity mindset.
that's
Scarcity mindset versus
their
abundancy mindset.
It's their no, it's their experience of the world though. It is. Like I mean, as a teacher, most
True.
people, I mean, they're not going teachers don't go out there and fight diversity. They're not going out there and fighting adversity like that. They sit in a book. They're studying. They don't go out and lift rocks and farm and do all that. I'm not saying that there are not farmers that are teachers, but for the most part, the people who are setting the rules are not me and you. They're not commoners. They're not people that had to work hard. They're people that have lived in a book. And on top of that, they're scared. So yes, they're gonna think the world is dog eat dog. Yes, they're gonna say that the survival of the fittest because they were born into a situation where they were the fittest, and everyone else, you must now survive me. And whether they know it or not, it's a true reflection on themselves. Now, I think that personally, what I believe the human experience is about, or like I guess the human mindset. Can you rephrase the question for me one more time just to make sure?
How would you describe human nature? Like, are we
Yes.
naturally egalitarian, or are we naturally egotistic? Are we naturally communal,
I think
tribal? How would you explain that?
I think that we're inherently a communication based community creatures, because when we're young, what do? We're constantly looking to our elders on to what is happening, what is going on, and the strongest of us have the most family support. Like when you have a good family support, you feel like you understand at least a lot more than someone who didn't have support on what's going on in the world around you, and where is my place within this chaos that is, I mean, the living chaos. We'll call it living chaos 'cause it's not really chaos. It's just bigger than we can comprehend. Where do we fit in on this? I think that the reason, I mean, if you just look at kids, like they're questioning their reality. They're questioning the world around them. They're experimenting constantly, like with like their touch, taste, sound. They're constantly absorbing information, and then once they have absorbed enough information and they're able to communicate with the world, then they've begun that test of like what is real and what is not real, what is real, what is not real, and that that questioning mind. I think that is our original nature. It gets beat out of us when we go to school because we're no longer able to test and see for ourselves what's actually going on. It's being told to us. And when that happens, and it creates a dociling effect. Not everyone can go into that. There are certain people that are rebellious. That nature never goes away. But I think our nature is the philosopher. I think ultimately we're here. We're the ears, eyes, nose and mouth of Gaia. And like we are on this super organism that's far more complex than we can understand, but we have a very special role. We have a role that helps, that has the potential to help everything else on this planet. We can create food. We can organize in ways. We can change. We can literally terraform Earth. And I'm not saying that we have to take it out of balance in any format. Actually, I think that's the thing. Like we're out of balance. We have animals that we could tame all the animals. It's really easy. All you have to do is feed them. If if you fed every animal you came across for a few generations, if we all just started doing that, all the animals would stop eating each other because they would know where the food's at, and they would stop eating us because because we give them.
That's going to be impossible though, because we're not going to be able to produce that much food.
We think, but I think that if we took the same amount of manpower that we do to build all this extra bullshit, to do all this entertainment, I'm not saying that this is possible. I'm just saying that if we could just stop and allocate everything over, I'm just saying that within a few generations, I think we would be in a closer harmony because I think that the purpose of humans is to be the shepherds of Earth. We're supposed to take care of all the animals. We're supposed to take care of all the things. We can feel on a level that is ego. We have an ego. We have a sentience of understanding that we exist. And the thing is, we also have the ability to give that to others. We have the ability to take care of a cat and give it a personality, give it a life that a cat could have never imagined. Because we may not have everything, but we can give everything to this animal to the point where like its nature, its current build is so far from its original build. You know what I mean? Its mentality, everything is now dependent on you, sure, but its experience, it's now an astronaut in the terms of what cats can do. You know what I mean? On the back of this human, this cat was able to live in a mansion, was able to travel all these states, was able to eat all these different foods. We're vectors of new experience. We're vectors of being able to experience the supreme novelty that is our planet. And we are squandering that because we don't understand that's our job. And we made it so complicated just to live. And that's the problem. We don't have to do that. Like, I mean, yes, it'd be a lot of digging out of the hole. I mean, we would have to. And I think it comes back down to taking responsibility in our lives slowly. I mean, we all need to take these small steps to become more like interdependent, but also self-dependent. You know, we need to be able to know who our neighbors are and what they're about and what their needs are. Because if we can meet our neighbors' needs, then when we have a need, our neighbor is gonna know us. Same thing with like taking care of
Right.
those animals. Everyone needs to eat. We all need to eat. This planet, the food grows on trees. It comes out of the dirt. Like it's so easy that like why are we not feeding each other? Why are we not feeding the world? The world is starving. Why don't we have fruit trees? Because the seeds are all taken care of. These are all male plants out here. We need to have female plants. There should be food growing everywhere. And we could feed everybody. The thing is, on top of that, like if we were just the ones planting the seeds, we would still be in harmony. Even if we never went out and fed an animal to at all, just planting the
Yeah.
tree is
But I think
enough
one of
to
the
change the whole thing.
barriers to that is the system that we've set up
Yeah.
for ourselves, where you have to go to work and pay rent, and uh, you don't have, you don't have the time to be able to cultivate. I mean, I have a garden, and I'm trying to get better at it, but not everybody does. And then even with me, like I can't spend all my time cultivating the way I kind of wish I could because I have to
Hmm.
work, and pay rent, and or pay my mortgage.
Yep.
Um, but to get back to the human nature thing, um, I think communication is a big part of it. The way that we
Yeah.
communicate to each other has a lot to do with what I'm about to say. So I've been reading a lot of books that are kind of all in the same category: Ishmael, the Ishmael trilogy, and then Christopher Ryan. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He wrote a book called Sex at Dawn, which really kind of examines human relationships, especially like sexual relationships. Um, and again, he's kind of in the same mindset as me as far as being a prehistoric person, how we're built biologically, how we live anthropologically, culturally, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and that's a good book. I'll recommend that. I won't go too far into that. Sex at Dawn, really good one. But he wrote a more recent one called Civilized to Death, and it's kind of an expansion on that. Sex at Dawn was a little bit more focused on relationships, sex, male and female relationship, etc. Whereas Civilized to Death kind of takes that very zoomed in uh, perspective and philosophy that he kind of espouses in Sex at Dawn and zooms out and shows how civilization itself is the problem, and that hunter gatherers lived in balance, in harmony with Gaia, like you're talking about. 99.7% of human history. 99.7% of human history.
Yeah.
No problems. No problems. We lived just as in harmony with the earth as a deer, a rattlesnake, a rabbit, a blue whale, you name it. And people can say, "Oh, well, that was primitive." Okay, well, there's a lot of ancient technologies and ancient artifacts that are being discovered now too, so that's questionable as well. And he also takes all of the civilized people's arguments and breaks them down as far as lifespan. A lot of the things that we hear about prehistoric people, there might be truth to them, right? And that's why they're able to get. That's why these untruths have survived so long. But he dissects them, right? Like the lifespan thing. Yes, infant mortality was higher, so yes, the average lifespan gets brought down a lot because you have so many more people dying at before 1 year old. But if you take out the infants that were dying in prehistory and you only include people who made it past 5 years old, the average lifespan is nearly the same
Mhm. Mhm.
as today, right?
Yeah.
And but we have modern technology and we're civilized, blah blah blah, right? And he breaks down all of them. But one of the ones that he really broke down was human nature, and the analogy that he told, and I love this analogy, is: did you know that grasshoppers and locusts are the same species?
Mhm. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Grasshoppers and locusts are the same species. What makes the difference, what makes one a grasshopper versus a locust, is the environment, the ecology the situation, the circumstance, the environment that it's put in. So if you're put in a very stressful situation, very stressful environment, very little food, you don't really even have enough sustenance to get by unless you gang up with some other low lives and go steal and and wreck their crops, as the
Yeah.
locusts do. That's the only way to survive. And you got to do what you got to do. And that because civilization has put us in very fucked up situations, it justifies these people saying, "Oh, human nature is bad, and selfish, blah blah blah." Human nature is bad, selfish, etc. Because we've created an environment that encourages people to act in that way.
Mhm.
But for 99.7% of human existence, which they like to ignore and they call prehistory as if it's not history, like
Yeah.
fish can live in pre-water, right? Uh, but it's history, right? They just call it prehistory because it's not the history they want us to know about.
Mhm.
99.7% of human existence, we were grasshoppers,
Yeah.
lived at peace, didn't destroy the earth, didn't create genocidal warfare. Sure, grasshoppers get eaten. Sure, grasshoppers eat, but it wasn't like this.
Yeah. When do
And
you
I
think?
and I see human nature being the same way. I see humans being the same way. We can be grasshoppers when
Mhm.
we're living tribally, when we're when we have a mutual trust among us. But when we're living in the civilized manner, civilized, it's all out war, man. It becomes dog eat dog. We've created that for ourselves in a lot of ways. It's not natural. We are in agreement on that. But I think we've kind of, in a lot of ways, made these disheartening and disempowering philosophies. We've made them true through our actions in a lot of ways, and they're not there. It doesn't mean they're ultimately true. There's something deeper that these conversations are getting at, right?
Yeah.
But there is something to what they're saying because they've created it by creating such a shitty environment where people are encouraged to act in ways that are against their nature, in
Yeah.
my opinion, against their nature, but they use those same behaviors to say that is human nature. And that's why
Yeah.
we need to design the system like this.
It's a circular system. The crazies took over the insane asylum and then made everyone else more crazy. And they're like, well, because you're crazy, more rules. And that's
Yep.
that's the downward spiral. I'm not sure when it started. I'm not sure.
You
I
know the
think
story of Cain and Abel, right?
yes, yes. Um,
So you know how the Christians try to say like, "Oh, that was God testing us."
uh,
That's not the real. That's not what. No, the real history behind that story is that it was the stories told by the nomadic herders, and it was trying to tell the other nomadic herders. It was trying to get this oral story out to say that God is on our side and that we are going to win in the end. And that's why the story makes no sense to the farmers because that's their only out is God was testing us. God wasn't testing you. You're the fucked up one. You're Cain.
when it comes to the stories
Cain
of
is still killing Abel. Cain is still killing Abel to this day. That's a metaphorical story. That's the farmers killing the herders and the nomadic shepherds and foragers. That's what that is.
I mean, well said. I mean that analogy does line up. Like metaphorically, it does. And I think that I think a lot of meaning is lost in those stories, and that's because I mean, well, people usually don't read them. They go to church, but they don't read them. They say they're Christians, but they
Let
don't. They
somebody
don't
else interpret them for them.
yeah, yeah, but that's also another product of the environment. You know, when that's when you've been that's the environment you've been raised in, which has been be talked to by a priest or to just listen to dogma. Period. A lot of people are I guess like through familial ties, you
Indoctrinated.
indoctrinated. I was raised Christian, and I mean to this day my parents have a hard time. Like when I start talking to them, or I start asking questions about their religion, and just like, well, what do you think? What do you think happened with Jesus? You know, like what do you think that's about? And of course, you know, we do have the beautiful metaphors of how like celestial bodies and these stories line up like that's a deep truth that most people never touch, but a lot of people don't see these stories as just stories or metaphors. They see them as something literal. So I asked them like, well, what do you think that is? Like why do you think that God allowed us to kill his son? And also why do you think that God's okay with that? Like why do you think that why do we have a religion where the person that you murdered, which is God's son, why do you wear him on your chest, still nailed to that cross? Like that seems kind of disrespectful to me. Like your God is murdered. Like and the thing is, he
Jesus
also
wasn't a
wasn't,
Christian.
and he wasn't even Christian. He was the king of the Jews. And then on top of that, like why are you worshiping someone who never asked to be worshipped? He didn't say that. He said, "Go find the Lord." You know what I mean? He said, "Go make your own path." But he's like, "But you have to make a relationship. You have to
Well, he
open up."
also said, "Love one another," and more wars have been fought in his name than any other name ever.
Yeah, and I've gone down to a lot of questioning, and I asked my family. I'm like, "Don't you understand that Christianity is a tool of war? It's not a religion. It's a tool of war." And I'm not saying that it can't be spiritual, because it can be. Those teachings in there definitely have spiritual wisdom for sure. But the way it's being used is a vector of war. It's always been a vector of war. For as long as the Roman Empire has used it, it was a vector of
Mm.
war. Because,
Yeah, I
like
mean,
I
you
said,
got it's exactly what you just said. I mean, until Constantine politicized it, Christianity was it was a small mystery religion. It was they're annoying people. I mean, for the most part, they were rebels and people that the Holy Roman Empire wanted to eliminate. And
yeah,
then once the movement grew to a point where they couldn't ignore it anymore, all right, well, we'll just co-opt it and, put a Yule tree up for Christmas and put all these pagan, traditions and overlay them onto these Christian teachings and just kind of make a hybrid something or another. And as long as
well,
everybody follows it, the important thing is you're Roman if you do this.
yes, yeah, that was the whole thing. It was,
You're not
it's very,
Roman if you don't do it. There's
yeah,
a
it's very
citizenry
similar to what
thing,
we're seeing now politically.
citizenship.
That a lot of the, because well, what is a religious practice to people back in those days? It was their philosophy of living. And so if someone comes and says you cannot do your philosophy of living anymore, you have to do what we say, you're taking away their mental freedom. You're putting a box on their head. You've cut them off from whatever they believe, whatever journey they were going on personally has now been cut off, and you've infringed on their free will. Now they can do whatever they want on their personal lives, I'm sure, but I know for a fact that they'd kill you if you did things that they didn't like. And the thing is, even to this day, we still have it where there are certain parts of the church, if you say certain things or you ask certain questions and they don't like it, you raise too much questions and you will go missing. I mean, the
You
Roman
know
Empire.
what's really crazy? I'm sorry to cut you off here, but
Sure.
because you're an open-minded person, we've talked about magic before. Your friend just
Mhm.
Sarah, so you already know. There's a book called Real Magic by Dean Radin. You ever heard of that book?
I don't think so. Sounds cool.
He does like a lot of scientific experiments that kind of try to validate magic or telepathic, telekinetic experiences, this sort of
Mhm.
thing. And it's funny because when he collected, I forget I wish I could explain this in better detail, but basically they did this study to set up, and they conducted the study on people all over the world, right? And across most of the world, people were about as telepathic or as telekinetic as other parts of the world. It was a relatively average score, right? But the part of the world in Europe, and especially like around like the Holy Roman Empire in Northern Europe, uh, scored significantly lower.
Mm.
And Radin, the author of the book, he hypothesized that the reason for this is that our magical ability was literally genocided out of that area of the world, like the burning of the witches, and really any sort of, if there was any sort of religious, the Druids, right, any sort of mystical groups, the Gnostics, they were eliminated. They were
Yes.
just eliminated, and so it was almost like they were genetically selecting the least magical people in that area, right? And so
Yeah.
it's kind of funny now that that's the area where people scored the significantly lower than
Mhm.
the rest of the world in being able to read other people's. It was, you know, I think they set up experiments where it was like they had playing cards and people were trying to guess the suit or the card, and they also like rolled the dice, but they're in the other room, right? And then they did different. They would add different, like, you know, certain clues, right? So some people had no idea, and then some people had like one clue, some people had two clues, some people had three clues, and there was ways of scoring it across all these different experiments. But it was just funny because everywhere in the world, people scored a higher than you would expect score, you
Mm,
know, higher than random chance anyway. When it
okay.
came to guessing, you know, certain uh, dice results or card results or whatever, right? Um, but this one area of the world scored below what we would expect, even if it was random, and like significantly lower than the rest of the world. And it happens to be the area of the world where anybody who had any sort of mystical or magical or spiritual worldview was literally executed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that I fully believe that our link to the mystic arts in general is through our intuition, and that comes through our connection with the feminine, and nature itself, like the nature of things. And so the further away you are from that nature of things, from that connection with your inner feminine, the harder it is to listen to your tuition, and you have to listen to faith, which is not always on your side. And when you believe in stuff, you create what's called topas or constructs. And when you're in a religion, or you say you're in a church, doesn't matter what religion, you're around a bunch of people that agree to believe in something. And I believe that that creates a fourth dimensional creature, whether people like to acknowledge its existence or not. But I believe that that conscious attention does become something, because we are creators. And when we all get together and we create constructs like that, it depends on how that construct is built. So if you're in a church and there's a pastor and he's the head of that church and everyone else is believing in what he's saying, then that construct, that consciousness entity, is an extension of that priest. That it will listen to that priest. And it's not even that it will listen in the sense that what you say will happen. It will, like, the collective might behind that group of people is being filtered through one person. And then that one person is gonna get a mirror of that collective back to him. And so that's why we have a lot of corrupt priests. But also, like, that's not the only reason I believe that. I think that there's a lot of reasons why we have corrupt priests. But I think that those constructs, in the past, if we were to go back into our native way of living, like, that was us communing with the spirits, that was us communing with nature. And then though we had bigger constructs, like natural constructs, not man-made topas, where we were tapping into things that were in greater harmony. I believe that when you have these faith-driven, I guess you would say, cults, um, the people who are in them don't have any power. Like, they've given their power of belief to something that they can't understand, and it's a parasite. It's a spiritual parasite. I'm a full believer that, I mean, spirits are real. We can call them whatever we like, but I do believe that there is a layer of reality, or I mean, you can even just say on the visual spectrum that we can't see. I mean, we only have so many colors. I
I
fully
mean,
believe there's things that we can't see that do
100%.
parasize, that do parasize
100%. I mean, I mean, even scientifically, aren't we? We're only able to actually see like
pinprick.
0.01% of the visible. Yeah.
So
So I mean,
with that,
it would actually be, it would be more surprising if there weren't extra
yes.
dimensional and other these other beings. It would be more. It would be. It's more likely they do exist than that they don't, for sure.
So that brings me to, like, my next, like, mental game, because I do this thing, like, I'll learn something and then I'm like, okay, well, if that's true, then what's next? Like, so what would that look like if we had a battle between these false constructs and real constructs? Like, what would that look like? Well, it would look like what we're doing right now. It would look like the insanity that is our world. It would be these collected constructs fighting against the natural way of being, and I mean, they pile up in places where they're given the most attention, And then you have to realize like those constructs are built off of expectation and thought. So whatever you believe about this thing, I mean, it's going to try to show you because it wants to keep your attention as long as possible. And I fully believe that, and I've seen it. I've dealt with it with others. That these beings are, I mean, very much alive. And the only way you can really perceive them is by being able to understand first, like recognize that like you don't see everything, and then two, reconnecting with your intuition. And then once you're able to do that, I mean, you got to figure out how to take care of yourself because, um, I guess once your eyes are open to those type of beings, I mean, you don't go back. So, personally, I have a lot of experience with this where I've seen people where I mean they're infested, like they have these spirits, these attachments all over them, and they can't see it. And they don't understand why the chaos is happening. They want help, but the more they struggle, the more those things get power, and it's literally their own subconscious mind fighting them, and it's being taken overrun by these things. You would say that they're outside of ourselves, but actually it's also part of the collective noosphere. Like it's all us. That's
Have
why
you ever heard
when
of fascia?
no, what's that?
Like our fascial system, FASCIAL, I think, or I think fascia is FASCIA. So
No,
it's basically our the fiber optic system in our body. It's what
word.
you're talking about. It's what you're talking about, basically. It's what I was
Yeah,
thinking about
yeah.
because, like, these beings, they when they attach to you, they'll actually create disturbances or blockages
Mm,
in your fascial system. So your fascial system is like these light nodes. It's kind of like it's kind of connected to your nervous system. You kind of think of it as like when you see the nerve body, right? But the fascia is it's kind of like this connective tissue. So it's kind of like a tissue nerve. I don't let me Google it real quick since we have
cool.
the
Yeah,
internet
I'm
at our
learning some new
disposal.
stuff. This is fun. I love it when I learn a new word. Fascia. Didn't know that.
So yeah, fascia is a thin casing of connective tissue that surrounds and holds every organ, blood vessel, bone, nerve, fiber, and muscle in place. So it's
Mm,
actually super important. I'm surprised they don't. Well, of course they don't teach about it in school because anything important they don't teach about in school. But it is that fiber optic network of information. To me, I think it's the physiological or the biological um, part of our body that is kind of connected to spirit. And again, that's probably another reason why they don't talk about it so much. Um, but what happens is when these situations that you're talking about happen, what happens is the fascial, you can literally see it in people because their body tightens up in these certain areas where they have these spiritual parasites or whatever you want to call them, right? But you can kind of even see it in their glutes or their even like their chest area, right? You can kind of get like that. For me, it always happens like in the lower neck, upper back, right in between the shoulder blades. I think that's a common spot for most people actually. Um, but you'll see, if you can see it on people sometimes too. And what it is physiologically, what you're talking about is the more metaphysical, spiritual stuff, but physiologically, it will show itself as these like chakra blockages, right? Like these spots that they need to stretch out, right?
yeah.
Or
Mm.
work through, or I don't know.
And
It's interesting.
I've seen like different levels of this also. Like it is fun because I don't really get to talk to about the unseen too often. Most people don't like to talk about it because it makes them feel weird. But I've seen like for one, I've seen a lot like in the back, like that spot you're talking about. I mean, that's where fleas hang out. You know what I mean? That's because you can't reach there. Like, like if you were a parasite, you would want to be on your back. You can't reach it. Our hands are powerful vectors for our own magnetic force, and so like when we are consciously like touching our body and we're communicating with that area, you can free up your centers, and not all the time is a
100%.
blockage of
Well,
parasite
no,
either.
no, I'm gonna let you finish, but that is understated across all truth-seeking communities, conspiracy, blah blah blah, spiritual. I don't mean this in a masturbation way. I mean this in the most literal sense. Touching yourself is so fucking crucial. It's
Yes.
not. I don't think enough people do it, and it's like literally you have the power to heal yourself right here. Just
Hmm.
take the time. Just take the time to do it.
It's very powerful,
That's it.
and well, that's where people learn Reiki, and they can do it with others too. But it's important to just master yourself. Like, I mean, you have it, you have it. You're alive, so use it. But it takes personal development. Like, these doors are not doors that are open for you. They are closed until you ask the question. And the thing is, I believe, like, once you start asking those questions, like, I feel like it unravels itself to you, and people, messengers will come.
Intention. Intention is so crucial. You know, my least favorite quote. I figured I've thought this to myself for the longest time, but I actually told somebody that for the first time a couple weeks ago. One of my coworkers actually, because it hadn't. I wasn't 100% sure I believed this, even though I thought it to myself for probably 10 years now. My least favorite quote out of all quotes ever is that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think whoever said that had some shitty fucking intentions.
Probably.
For real. Because intention is everything. If you
Yeah.
genuinely have good intention, that is the path to heaven, baby. I'm sorry. Genuine good intention is the path to a good life. It's the path
Yeah.
to self healing. It's the path to discovering your purpose. It is literally the route to living a good life. Like, fuck whoever said that. I hate that quote. And I don't
I
hate
agree.
much, but that's a
Actually, I
bullshit
don't
ass
think that
quote.
quote is very grounded. Because, yeah, like, I mean, if you have an intention, you go on it and you're listening to yourself, like, it would work. But I feel like if you were to take that philosophy, which I think is corrupted philosophy, and install that in yourself, it would pretty much boil down to you not listening to your intuition. Like,
Right. And it's a disempowering. Like, what's the
yeah,
point of having good intentions
it makes you feel helpless.
if I'm just gonna go to, if it's just gonna lead to hell,
And then what even is hell? Like, it's a construct. I
Hell is thinking that way. The
yeah, yeah,
irony of that is that is hell. Believing
that is
that is hell.
yeah.
That's the irony of that.
Yeah, I think we set ourselves up for a lot of, like, literary, like, black holes. Like, just within our media, within our social sphere, like, we have so many bad philosophies that, like, I mean, a lot of the way to fix it is good philosophy. Like, we do need more philosophers. We do need to have more public discourse and talking and listening. Like, I
We need to
wish I
make
could.
philosophy cool.
Yeah, yeah, we gotta
I
make
think
philosophy.
academia has done a very good job of making philosophy not cool.
And it's like the coolest thing ever. Like, I don't know. To me, it is. It's like, I mean, you're here. You might as well have an opinion about it, and then you better see if that opinion
And
works.
cultivate and develop your opinion. Don't just have a
Yeah,
fucking opinion.
yeah. Don't just
Why
have
do
one.
you have that
That's it.
opinion?
Live it. Live
Yeah.
your way. And but that's the whole thing. If people live
And
their,
cultivate it. Yeah, and cultivate it. And
but
challenge yourself.
if people did that, they wouldn't be easily controlled. So I totally, it makes sense why why they wouldn't want you to
True.
be a philosopher. Why they keep those to lock and key under book and library card. I think that the power to communicate is actually, I think that's what's gonna save it. Like, if the world is to be saved, communication will be key. Um,
Communication saves the nation.
right? Yeah, I like that. That's good philosophy.
That's a quote I like.
So I just I see it though. Like, the more I learn about communication, the more I understand how much we're lacking in it. Because we're scared. There are so many times where, like, I've talked to my family, and I realize that there are things that are going on in their lives that have been going on in their lives for a really long time, and the only thing they have to do is talk to get it out. But they're so scared because everyone is so emotionally driven when they do communicate that everything is lost. We don't have a safe way to talk to each other. And I think that we just forget sometimes, like, especially when we're emotional, especially when we feel wronged, or when it's not a good time. Like, we get so focused on the fact that, like, I need something, that we forget that we are also being received as much as we're asking, like we're being
one
received.
of the tips in this book was like when you get emotional like that and you're in the heat of the moment, to check with yourself. Like it's a quick question; it can happen in split seconds. Um, so the question is, what's my motive here? And the reason for that is your stated motive can start this way, and then something is said or something happens that puts you in that emotional state. And what's happened is you think that you're still stuck to your motive, but you have to defend yourself because of whatever's happened. And so you get emotional and respond in a way that throws you off of your stated motive. And you, in your mind, if you haven't asked the question, what's my motive here? In your mind, you still have that stated motive because that was your intention going in.
Yeah,
But that's why in that split second moment when you get emotional, you have to ask, where is my motive? Because if your motive is still to find common ground and to open dialogue and to really find a solution that's going to at least bring everybody contentment at a minimum, that's when that, not even a deep breath, but that half a breath can save you from saying something that you didn't really want to say.
yeah. I mean, I will say personally that yes, yes, that works. I do it. It saved me from a lot, actually. There are many times where I feel like I can get emotionally engaged, and I'll say it out loud. I'm like, hey, like my motive is to communicate better. Like I just want to communicate with you. Like I just want to talk, like just to connect. Like even if we're getting hot, I'm like, okay, like I hear you. I hear you. I hear what you're saying and you're hearing me. We're hot, but we have to keep in mind that like the goal is to communicate. Like we're on the same side. Like that's actually that's one of the biggest things that I do when I'm talking to people, especially when I'm bringing them news or not even news. Like I'm giving them hard advice or I'm showing them.
You're communicating something that their ego doesn't want to hear.
Yeah, and I'm just like, hey, like we are on the same side here, and this is something that you can move past. Like this is not something that has to define you in any way. The nature of the problem is to be solved, and you have the key. And sometimes you just need a mirror. And I'm here to tell you in a very kind way that like maybe you should listen more, or like I don't think you understand how you're coming off when it comes to your tone. Like I can handle it, but the reason why you're not being received is X, Y, and Z. Like maybe asking a little bit more questions would help, or maybe just like building off of what's already been
I
said.
think no, I think that what you said, asking more questions. I think people respect that. When you ask a question in a heated moment, it it's a signal to them that you're not trying to dictate anything to them. You want more information so that you can come to some sort of common understanding. Um,
I, I have a perfect.
even if people don't like consciously or have the awareness that they're thinking that way, I think it's just natural when a question is asked to you. It's like you naturally feel like, okay, they want my input. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Or they want to come together in some way.
but don't ever ask why. Just so you like, so if you're trying to avoid someone being defensive, don't ask them why they do anything, because no one knows why we fucking do anything. Okay, like it will always be a defensive response. So instead, you
I
can be
think
like,
you can ask why is if you're being specific. You just
oh,
say why.
sure,
That might not be. Yeah.
but or if you no, if I was like Garnet, why do you wear that hat? Like, why, why?
It's not a hat.
Exactly. Well, now you're being no. but but you see what I mean? Like you could easily just be like, how'd you come across that fashion statement you're wearing on your head? That's pretty cool.
So I just got it from Amazon. The Japanese bandana.
That's cool. That's cool. See, but now you don't have to defend that it's not a hat. Because I asked how instead of why. Why is useless. The why doesn't matter. That's asking someone what their personal fiction is. That's just not gonna make any sense. You want to ask, how did you get here? how can I get there too? Or like, how did we get to this thing? How can we move past it? Because the thing is, when you ask questions, is that you want solutions. Why doesn't lead you to solutions? Why leads you to more information that may or may not be useful at all? But how? How did we get to this point? How did I hurt your feelings? How can I make you feel more comfortable? Those are actionable questions. When you ask why can give you anything? I mean, you can say anything's my why. I'm like, I mean, it's useless. So, like,
Well, I think why can reveal motivation though. So if you're
sure,
looking to understand what somebody's motivations are, I think why can be a good question.
I would just ask, what is your motivation? That's a what question, not
Yeah.
why is your motivation.
Well, why, or but I think it could be more like, why. I'm just trying to come up with an example off the top of my head. Like, um, yeah, I guess why is not really meant for those types of conversations. It's more why is meant for more like these types of conversations.
Yeah. Why is a together
Explorations.
question like
Yeah,
why? But
yeah,
in a conversation of communication, especially about things that are present, why is not very useful. It's how and what and that. But when you ask someone why anything they do, it immediately responds. The only response you can really come up with, unless you're very advanced at communicating, is a defensive answer. Like, because you have to defend. When you ask somebody why, you have to defend why you did something or why you are the way you are, regardless of what the question is. It's a bag of worms. Avoid it. Don't use why. That's the one thing I learned in class is like, don't use why. It's just not useful. You can say what all day. One of my biggest things is like, what happened to you? Just what happened to you? Just
yeah.
you
No,
know,
that's a big one.
and that open and you just sit with that silence too. Like if they don't have a
I mean,
question,
what that question reminds me of is a book that I read called Lost Connections, all about uncovering the causes of anxiety and depression. And that question is not asked by doctors prescribing anxiety and depression medication. But there have been studies done where doctors simply ask that one question, and the reduction in the number of patients that still need the medication just from asking that one question is significant. I don't
yeah,
remember the exact numbers, but it's in the book. And it's crazy. I remember thinking like that's just that one question. It could keep
what happened?
millions of people off of anxiety and depression medication
But the
just
thing
from
is,
having somebody that genuinely wanted to hear and actually listen. That was the other key is they actually listened to the people tell them what happened to them.
yeah, I mean, at that point, you just have to sit down and enjoy the story. It may be painful too. Like I mean, I that's my job to ask that question. And when you first open that door, I mean, I mean, I can tell by the people receiving that question that it feels like they've arrived finally. Like they can finally like they can be themselves for a second. Usually that like when you ask what has happened to you, and you just listen, like they finally have that permission to reveal their story. You know what I mean? That's when you're actually getting that person's fiction. Like that's the life that they've been living. This is what happened to me. And it
Mhm.
and the thing is that most people also just need a little bit of validation. So like there's a lot of people that will have problems or bad things that have happened, but because no one has ever asked what has happened, like they don't get it out. And then when they do get it out, most people don't want to hear it. They're like, "Oh shit, that sounds bad. I don't want to hear it. Like let's talk about something nice that makes me feel good." But like the thing is, people need their pain validated. A lot of people need their because they don't. A lot of people are not in touch with their feelings. So like that a trauma causes an emotional detachment in that event. And the only way that you can reattach to that event is to be received, is to be validated because you have invalidated your own experience, not because of anything you've done on purpose, because that's what your brain does to save you. In a traumatic experience, it's like too much wattage in a light bulb. It'll just turn it off. And there'll be an off light bulb in your head somewhere. And it'll be off for a long time until finally you're able to tell that thing and then be received like, hey man, do you realize that like that was a lot of pain you went through? Like that's a lot of That's a lot of stuff. Are you okay? Like, how did you deal with that? Are you all right? And most of the time they'll say no. And then we hug it out because it's true. Like a lot of that shit hasn't been validated. We go through some fucked up shit. And half the time we don't even know if that's normal or not. Like things happen and we're like, well, I mean, if no one saw it and no one's going to listen, then I mean, it's just another chapter in my book, but in order to get that validated, like it feels good. It feels like you're being heard, you're present in that like your pain and experience mattered. And I think that as spiritual people, me and you, um I think it's really good when we share like that, and then talk about it because I think it shows a lot of people the way on how to open that Pandora's box. Because I feel like a lot of people are scared and hurt, and a lot of light bulbs are turned off. The only way you can open it is if you open that Pandora's box. You got to jump in, and listen, because it's story time, and that's how you gain wisdom. I mean, yeah, my grandma used to always tell me this like this saying. I don't know where it came from, but she was like, if you don't listen, you're gonna feel. And I was like, it was a kind of a threat. Like, if you don't listen to what I say, I'm gonna fucking smack you. But, it actually is really good because if you don't listen, if you do listen to everyone, if you listen to their stories, you won't have to go through what they've went through because you can be like, yo, I'm gonna avoid that because you just told me what happens. Like, I don't need to live that anymore. I don't need to experience that firsthand. You experienced it firsthand, and you brought that experience to me by sharing it. I asked for it by asking you what happened and you crystallized that experience, those emotions, and you shared it with me. I don't have to live through that because if I take that, if I take your wisdom and I instill it into my life, you have lived through me and I have lived through you. I don't need to experience that anymore. Thank you. Thank you. Because I now know how to avoid it. And if I can't avoid it, I at least know that I'm not going through it in a vacuum. I'm not by myself. I'm not the only person that's ever gone through something like this. And I know that I can survive this. Why? Because that person survived. And I just feel like asking questions is just so important. And I think, I mean, you never know what kind of answer you'll get too. Some people have some really awesome stories, but they just don't get asked. What happened to you? You know?
Yeah, no kidding. I think I think one thing that prevents people from asking those questions though is they don't want to hear the answers. Like they don't want to hear other people's traumas. And I think you have to have a mindset of at the very least understanding, but I think it becomes stronger when you've experienced over the power of overcoming trauma. Like
Mm.
like I feel like people who overcome trauma are stronger are stronger than those who have never experienced trauma.
Oh, yes. Mhm.
Like is for all of the hardships that it can put you through, for all of the negative emotions that you can feel in response to a traumatic situation or event, having a mindset of I'm learning from this. This is making me a stronger or just a more well-rounded, polished, experienced, weathered person. It's giving me wisdom. And there's that. This is a balancing act for sure because like I think a lot of times people hear me say stuff like I'm just what I'm saying right now, and they're like, he's deflecting or he's ignoring or he's like not addressing the trauma. But that's actually not the case. I feel like the only way to actually get through the trauma is to not avoid it, to not try to go around it. It is that to go through it.
Mm.
And on the other side, you are going to be stronger and happier and wiser. And it's not a result of working around the trauma, it's a result of working through the trauma.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, through it is the best way. It's the only way, honestly. And when
Well, it's the only way. I think if rich people and certain people with certain amounts of resources, you can successfully work around it. you can't successfully in the sense that you can at least keep up an appearance, right?
Oh, okay. So I mean, yeah, I guess if the facade is what you want to live, um, I feel like I mean, trauma. The only way is through it. Like
The only way is through it, right?
you're gonna keep avoiding it, and then you'll wind up addicted to drugs. Some form of escapism will manifest in your life because you're avoiding. Like you will do that thing, and until you address it, you're gonna feel like your life is out of control. You're gonna feel like there's things that you can't avoid. Like there are these, I don't know, things over your head, and you don't want to put a label on it because you haven't gone through the you haven't walked through that shadow yet. And the thing is, the reason why I love what I do is that I get to connect with people, and I tell them that, I mean, you don't have to walk through that alone. Like we can walk together. We can walk hand in hand, and you can tell me everything. And like I have a guided meditation that I do with them. So when we go through the trauma, we go through it. Like they are seeing it. We link our imaginations so that they can travel through our memory. And we spend time there. And like we question it. We're like, okay, well, what happened? Why does this feel that way? How does it feel for you now? And then we
But
go through
to
memory.
to connect what you're saying right now to the asking the questions and asking like what happened to you, I think why a lot of people don't even ask that question is because they haven't dealt with their own trauma yet. So how are they going to deal with somebody else's trauma?
Mhm.
It only makes sense to even ask these questions if you've if you at least feel like you're strong enough to take it on, you know? And I think the only people that are going to feel like they're strong enough to take on other people's traumas are people that have successfully dealt with their own, or at least successfully
Yeah.
to a degree that they feel like they can actually offer legitimate support and help, and that it's not gonna exhaust me to hear about your trauma, but it's also not going to um, make you feel like you're like I'm not if I'm going to ask you what happened to you, that indicates that I want to hear what happened to you, right? So I am opening the door for you to tell me. Uh, as in the only people that, like I said, the only people that are even going to ask the question are people that feel like they can deal with it. And then I guess the flip side to what I'm trying to say there is the other person still might not tell you.
Yeah.
These conversations still might not happen even if you do everything right.
True. Yeah. I mean, that's why they pay for my sessions. So, like, if it was free, I mean, you don't have to do anything. But if you pay for
So
it,
okay,
I would hope that.
so do you think if they pay for it that they've already set the intention to be able to share then?
Yes.
Right.
And when we open that door, like I said, we step through together. And yeah, it's a lot. I mean, you can traumatize somebody by sharing your trauma with someone. Like you can actually hurt them if they're not ready. Like if
Right.
they're not a person that has built up a mental resilience or good boundaries for themselves. They can get sucked in. They can get really hurt. It's
Right.
dangerous. It's like going into a fire. Especially when you're diving in with someone else's memories.
And
Like
that's
that's
why and that's exactly why I don't think most people are even willing to ask those questions. And
mm,
I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying it's kind of where we are as a society. Like, I think we need people like you that are not just willing, but like like want to open up those conversations, you know?
there's so much benefit from having those conversations. Like we did talk about how it can hurt and like how the trauma can scare you, or I mean, it can do a lot of things, but during that process of questioning with that person, you're growing closer to them. Like you're bringing someone close, and it's a very intimate process because not many people can hold that space, can get that close, and it's beautiful that we can do it through the internet, like just like this. You know what I mean? We can get close with our hearts. And I think a lot of people are also scared of that closeness. Like they haven't had the thing is a lot of people don't know what love is. And like that's what love is. Like that's true love is like what happened? I'm gonna receive you. Let's walk through it together. Like I am genuinely interested in what is you. And that's that. Like I don't want anything from you. You don't have to give me anything. I just want to know who you are. Like that's being loved. To be appreciated, to be seen as the unique gem that you are. Like
You're gonna
I
love this book.
oh
I need
yeah.
to send you. I need to send you both the link to the book Lost Connections. There's the one I already brought up, Lost Connections, and he also did a TED talk on that book. Johan Hari is the author's name. In that, what you're saying in that TED talk, he has a quote that I think resonates with exactly what you're saying, and that is, "You are not a machine with broken parts. You're a human being with psychological needs that have not been met."
Yeah.
Right? Because the story that most depressed and anxious people are told when they visit a doctor is that you have a chemical imbalance in your brain, right?
Mm,
Uh, you can take these pills, it'll balance them out. We're going to
mm,
try different pills until one works for you, right? That's the story that they're being told.
yeah.
Chemical imbalance, biological, physiological, nothing you can do about it. You're a machine with broken parts. The truth is, you're a human being with unmet psychological needs. One of those needs being bonding, connection with others, right? Feeling understood. Yeah, and he also talks about the difference between being alone and being lonely. It's a big difference. You can be with a bunch of people and be lonely if you don't feel like you can share who you really are. If you can't be the authentic version of yourself, doesn't matter how many people are around. You're lonely.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, anyways, those are just you should definitely check that book out because
I'm excited. I have it written down here. I thought at first that I was going to be doing a part two of the interview for you. So I actually wrote down some questions that I would ask you.
yeah, we can run through them. I've got a little bit of time.
Word. Okay. First question. You talk to your mom?
No,
Okay. That was one of the big ones. What is-
nah,
uh, how do you feel about that still?
I've let that one go. I mean, my half of the relationship is fine.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm good with myself, and I've let it be known that I'm open to talking anytime.
Okay. When she's ready, huh?
Yeah, the ball is in her court.
That is what you said last time. The ball is in her court. All right. Um, have you healed any relationships recently?
I don't know if healed is the right one necessarily, but um, estranged relationships have gotten better recently.
Oh yeah.
I've been in, yeah, I mean, all of that is in relation to my father going downhill. Like his sister and I have had tension in the past. I would prefer like what we're talking about to actually talk through it.
Mm-hmm.
But she just I think in from her perspective, it's like she knows what I want to say, and I'll give her that. Like she's a smart lady, and she just doesn't want it to be vocalized that she was wrong. Like we both know she was wrong, and I think it's just like we're both just ready to move on. I would rather talk through it so that it could be like totally cool, and so and also even more importantly so that they know and she knows that I'm not mad at them. Like I'm not holding any negativity, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like she gets that, but it would be easier to just talk about it, you know. And I think the only time I brought up like I'd like to talk about it, she gave an answer that you're probably not going to like, but it was still at least positive. It was like, you know, family is family sort of thing. And it's like, it was kind of like she was alluding to it's water under the bridge, like we're family. That's, that's what it is sort of thing. And that's cool. And I appreciate that sentiment, but I still think it would be more complete, more fulfilling to actually talk through it. Um,
Sure.
but at least on that telepathic level that we were talking about earlier, I do think that we're it's getting better at the, I was invited to Christmas,
Okay.
so shit like that. So,
Did you go?
yeah.
How was it? Tell me
Yeah, I
about it.
mean, it was all right. I mean, my pops is just going downhill, man. Like, I think Christmas was kind of, I mean, even then he was kind of, he didn't have his mental faculties all there for sure, but that was probably the last time I remember him not being completely lost. Like, since 2024, it's been like he thinks he's in Atlanta. He thinks, his friend from Atlanta came and visited him, and he thought he was in Atlanta the whole time.
Yeah.
Shit like that. Yeah.
No. I'm happy that you got to reconnect. During that time, during Christmas, I actually did some connecting with some estranged family myself. Same time, actually. Like during that same, it was with my aunt. I don't really talk with her because she's kind of like the matriarch now of my dad's side of the family, and they're
Same exact aunt, except for the grandma,
Woo!
except for their parent is still, except for their mom is still around, so she's kind of junior
Their mom is still
matriarch.
around too. Their mom is still around too. Dude, we're very similar. So we're in sync. And I mean, I had to talk to her. I was tired of not talking to her. Like, I don't have any like positive things to say because I feel like we had a lot of she's very judgmental to me, like all the time, like throughout my whole life. And she's never gotten to see me for who I am, and I would love to just meet her, like just have a loving conversation with her. But she's a very busy lady. She's also a lawyer, so imagine that kind of mind. Is very quick to put things in boxes, and then on top of that, my dad's side of the family has a lot of takers, so she's been very defensive. She has to be, you know what I mean? Like, because there's a lot of people that will use and abuse her kindness, and I feel like this Christmas, she was my present. I was able to call her, and we talked, and she got to explain to me how. Well, first thing she was just like, "Oh, you're back from the dead, huh?" And I was just like, "Yep, I'm back from the dead." Like it was like I could have took that immediately wrong, you know what I mean? But I was like, "Yes, I'm back from the dead, zombie, but I missed you. Came back for hugs." And she was like, "Well, she's like, you ever get a job?" And I was like, "Nope, still jobless since 2018. Sorry." Fought the war, came back home, realized I was broke. I was missing you. And she was like, "You just trying to butter me up?" And I'm like, "Yes." She's like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "You, you. I want you. I want to spend time with you." And she, it finally got through. Like after all the spikes, like I had to dodge and weave, take my ego, throw that shit to the side because it doesn't matter what she thought, because she wasn't seeing me. She was just seeing her feelings. And when we finally connected, it happened to be on a spiritual level. She is also a very spiritual lady, and she's going through her own initiations, and she opened up about that, and she was just like, "Oh," and I was like, our belief systems overlap very similar. She has like, I don't know what her religion's called, but it has something to do, or it's a spirituality. It's not a religion. But it has to do with like Jamaica. Like it's a whole Jamaican situation. It's beautiful. But I realized that she uses talismans and like iconography and all types of stuff that is very similar to my natural way of doing things. And so I was like, "Auntie, like we're the same. Like I do these things too." And she was kind of like spiritually trying to gauge like what level I was at. But like, I mean, the level of whatever you think I am. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't have a number. I don't have a power level, but I could tell that, like, I didn't expect to connect with her on that level, on that subject. And then from there, we were able to really let our guard down in certain ways, where she got to, like, talk to me about why she is the way she is without me asking her, "Why are you this way?" It was like, "What happened to you?" And she told me with my relation, like her relationship was with my dad was not very good. And when you look at me, I look very much like my dad. And you could easily assume that I will be very similar to him, which I'm like the polar opposite. But I love that guy. Anyway.
We have very similar stories, dude.
I love it. That's why we bros, dude. We're distant relatives.
Did you know that that's my handle? I'm like a lot of Oh yeah. Okay. I was about to say you're on Instagram. Shoot, I was about to say that would have been scary if you just said that.
Well, the thing is, like that, like since I've been knowing that we're gonna have this conversation, that concept actually has been coming up a lot. Like just in my like normal talks, I'm like, yeah, we're all distant relatives, and I think that that's beautiful. I think it's important to keep at the forefront because I think it keeps the humanity in everyone. But yeah, talking with my aunt, we really got to we got to connect again, and that was beautiful. We don't talk every day or nothing because she's got a lot. She's a lot. But that was a rekindled connection. So,
Well, the part about you looking a lot like your dad and them having those assumptions, like that's actually one of the root issues with my mom is
mm,
you're just like your dad. Like, okay, I'm not even going to get into all that, but
is that what she says to you?
that was the last. That was one of the last things she said years ago when we stopped talking. Was like, you're just like your father. You're something about you're a con man or something like. She was tripping for sure.
Yeah, she
Because it's
sounds
like,
scared.
yeah, she's my dad definitely did a number on her, but like
Yeah,
your own naivety, like you can't purposely be naive for so long without some consequences. Like you knew what was happening and you didn't want to know what was happening.
yeah,
That sort of thing. Like she talking about the accountability thing that you brought up earlier. She's a prime example of that. Like
hmm
everything is everybody else's fault, and it's like, yes, some of the things that you're saying are true, but what about all the shit you did? You don't
yeah,
ever even talk about that. Like if I bring up accountability or any word of taking responsibility for your actions, she literally doesn't address that. Like she'll ignore that part of what I said. It's like, okay, well, there's no talking to somebody
would you
if
like
you take accountability or responsibility for their actions.
would you like some advice on that one?
Sure. I mean, sure, yes, but I doubt that the ball is in her court. So
I get it.
unless she approaches me, there's not going to be any more dialogue.
Sure. I mean, but this can be applied to anyone who doesn't take accountability for their actions, because that's something that we actually have a fucking phenomenon going on about that shit. No one wants to take
No
accountability.
kidding.
So when you're in a conversation with someone that's like that, and they're refusing to acknowledge what you're trying to bring up is the things that they should be accountable for, and they're not. You can just ask them like, hey, so what part of this problem or this situation is you? Just tell me, like, what part of this situation are you responsible for? Like, where are you in this? And just see what they say. Sometimes they'll, if they trail off and they try to, because a lot of people will try to deflect. You can ask again. You're like, okay, like I hear you, I hear all that you just said, but what part of this problem set of this thing is, if you can be as specific as possible, it's nice. What part of that is you? Because I'm failing to see it. Like you've told me that none of this stuff is your fault. I believe you. So what part of it is your responsibility, or have you had a part in? Because I don't see it, and I want to see it. So can you tell me what
And
part of it?
I believe that approach would work with
Checkmate.
80 to 90% of reasonable people.
Yeah,
My mother doesn't fall into that category.
I'm sure. I feel you. I actually, the people that doesn't work on, those are my favorite. Like I don't know. I'm weird, man. Like the more neurotic.
She will literally she would go on about how she was doing the right thing and she
Yeah,
was just trying to look out for everybody, and I'm a pothead, so I worship Satan, and
yeah.
I don't know. It's literally fanatical with her.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing that actually ties to reality. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? And to me, there's nothing that you can do with somebody that has no tether to reality.
Mm. I I get it. I don't think I would like as an individual. Like I said, I love people that are like that. Those are my favorite because I will find a way. Like I will find the question that will get you to say what you're supposed to say, whether you know it or not. And when it clicks, they're forever grounded again. Like, I mean, you can't unground immediately. You know what I mean? But once you
I would love I would love to see you just try to interact with my mom. She would judge you in less than a half of a millisecond,
oh, I would love her.
and you probably wouldn't even be able to talk to her because she would just dismiss you as somebody who would even talk to my satanic son. It's
Yeah.
incredible. It's really incredible. It's
Yeah, no, I get it. Those people.
even my aunt who I've had my own. We've had our own issues. She's a reasonable person. You know,
Mhm.
she said something the other day about how she had to contact my mom because of my dad going into the nursing home and his alimony payment probably won't be coming out or whatever. And my aunt told me like she just sent back some horrible, nasty message, and I didn't even ask questions because it was like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Unfortunately, organized religion can create such a bubble for people to
Yeah.
go in to where, like, if you, it instills them with a sense of
Oh, like
righteous.
you don't go to church? Well, then you're an absolute piece of dog shit.
Yeah, yeah, and I've seen that a lot. Like the Christian leverage is what they call it. I mean, but I know my Bible very well, and I love talking to Christians. This is my favorite subject is Christianity, but I really hope that I hope that someone grounds her because that's a scary place to be in.
Yeah,
In the
well, the only
future.
thing that's gonna ground her is death. 6 feet under.
Damn. I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope someone does. Like, and I mean, just us having this conversation, like I said, there's so much things that wind up clicking in the noosphere. Who knows who is gonna hear this? Who knows how the waves travel and who will say what to her one day? You know what I mean? You never know. You never know. Now I'm not saying that she's gonna show up one day and be like, all right, you're not a Satan believer or something like that. But I do hope that she gets grounded in reality. I have another question for you. Have you let go of anything recently? And if so, what is it?
Shit, I let go of it. I let go of a lot of things every day. One of my favorite. I'm a hip hop fan. One of my favorite hip hop artists is B.O.B., who is he was a mega star for Nothing on You and Airplanes, and then the flat Earth shit happened and basically blackballed from the music industry. Um,
He's great. I love his
yeah,
music.
one of his quotes in one of his songs is "I love it all, but I ain't attached to it."
Mm.
And I feel like that's huge. Like I love life, but I'm not attached to anything. Like I know that this house is not mine. This is if you want to use religious terms, it's the Lord's, it's God's. It's
Mm.
his life. It's, if you want to be spiritual, it's just life. It's like life is life. And I think everything that we think is ours is a rental, you know.
I mean,
Nothing
yeah,
is
even the
nothing is
skin.
permanent. So yeah, so I mean, when you say have I let go of anything, like letting go is kind of part of me. Like I let go of everything all the time. I try not to hold on to anything for real. I mean, again, I understand that the world that we live in, we want to maintain a house or a home to live in. We have to have certain attachments in a temporal sense, but I think it's good to have the awareness that it's temporary.
Yeah, that makes sense. Personally, I've let go of. I've been trying to let go of weed, smoking it. I know just smoking it has been making me a little stagnant. Like in the past, I've been pretty
Do
weed
you
free.
drink?
No,
Uh, I did go
drinking.
alcohol free for almost 2 full months. My
Oh,
grandma is to blame on this one though. Like
okay.
of all people in the world, I gotta. Well, I can't blame her for the 3 times I've drinking since her birthday, but her birthday was February 25th, and my goal was to. My original goal, I quit drinking in 2020 for the whole year. So I
Mhm.
was going to do the same thing in 2024. Then this shit
Congratulations.
happened with my dad, and I like it came. Somebody even brought up like, what are we gonna do for his funeral or like life celebration or whatever. And like I remembered, like my dad was an alcoholic, huge drinker.
Hmm.
But to his credit, he was always is a hard word to use, but 99% of the time he was a happy drinker, like always trying to get people. He was the life of the party, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like always trying to get people to laugh and like definitely not a downer drinker, you know, like he was cool to be around. It was a problem in the sense that he drank too much, but his behavior was never a problem. He wasn't a drunk that hit his wife. He wasn't a drunk that beat his kids. He was like just a fun, loving, trying to have a good time kind of guy. And
Mm,
alcohol was his crutch, one of his many crutches, but
mm.
the biggest one probably.
Okay.
But his request is that everybody drinks when he died, like have a party, pretty much, which is very
Yeah.
fitting for. So then it was like, okay, he's probably going to die this year, so I'll have a drink when he dies. Well, then my grandma turned 90 on February 25th, and we're all like at my aunt's house and shit. Same aunt, actually.
Okay.
Uh, and and my aunt asked me like, "Do you want anything to drink?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll get a." Like they all knew that I'd planned on, I hadn't been drinking or whatever. And I was about to ask for like a sweet tea or a water or something, and my grandma was like, "Oh, you can have a drink with your grandma for her 90th birthday." And it's like, damn, that's tough to turn down.
Yeah, yeah. So
So I
do
had a
you
champagne and
not
orange
drink
juice with her.
for any specific reason, or you just
Just my dad being an alcoholic growing up, and me starting to drink when I was 14. Like, I've never had a problem with it, like a serious problem with it, but I just like to keep myself in check.
that's good. For me, like after I got out of the military, I used to drink a ton, like in the military. I loved it. After I met my wife and I fell in love, like after I don't know, when I drink now, I'm just like the next day I feel garbage. Like I just feel bad. Like I
Okay. Okay, so I will say this: I don't drink beer anymore.
mm,
I really don't. I haven't drinking wine in a long time. I'm still open to drinking wine if like there's nothing else around and I'm in a situation where I want to drink. I'm still open to it, but it's been a long time. The only thing I really drink now is champagne if it's like this my grandma's birthday sort of thing, a wedding or something like that. But the one type of alcohol that I've grown very fond of, and alcohol is such a I don't really want to like it, but most people when they think about alcohol, they think liquor, beer, wine. Mead. Have you ever had mead?
I feel like I have, and I know it's good. Like it's like very sweet,
It's a
right? Honey based.
different. It's yes, it's fermented honey, and they can be infused with like different herbs, and so like the one I like is hibiscus cinnamon. So
Ooh.
fucking good, dude. And like you talk about not having a hangover. Like
Mm,
I'm not saying there's no after effects, but compared to a beer or a liquor hangover, it is
yeah,
like you can just stretch it out for 10 minutes and boom, it's gone. You drink a glass of
yeah,
water. It's not like you need to get an IV and take all these
yeah,
like it's you know what I'm saying? Like it is
yeah,
just very mild. Like you might feel a little slow for like an hour in the morning, but it's not like an all day thing. You're not gonna have a headache. You're not gonna have light sensitivity issues. Like
yeah. I feel
meat
like
is meat is good.
ever since I don't know, like I after a while, like my body just started getting very sensitive. Like in general, like for me, like I don't even like if I smoke weed, I don't even need a lot anymore. It's like once, and I'm like, dang, I'm stoned. Like I don't need a lot of anything anymore.
Yeah.
And
I'm that way with everything but weed. Even I mean alcohol
okay,
I'm that way. Just a little bit of alcohol is all I need or any other drug that I
yeah.
experiment with.
Like if I
Just a
had like
little
one beer, like
small
I'd drink
dose.
beer maybe, but I don't know. I don't have much of a beer taste. Like I will, but
Mead. If you ever drink again, get a bottle of mead, dude. It's so good. I was shocked the first time I had it. It's been almost a year now because it was last
Mm,
April. And I was just like, this, like, I literally, I've had 3 beers. That was with my dad last summer one random day. I had like 3 Bud Lights, like not even good beers. Just like I was
mm,
with my dad and whatever I wanted to drink. He wanted me to drink with him and I was gave into it.
yeah.
Um, and like maybe a few liquor drinks here and there, like and when I was still socially drinking more often than I am now, and there wasn't meat around. I have a couple like old fashions or whatever, but even then, like it's talk about not needing much liquor. God damn, you get drunk so quick off of that, and I can't handle it. I'm not gonna lie, I can't handle liquor.
I used to
I don't
drink.
like the taste of beer, but mead is it's just perfect. The alcohol by volume is like 10, 12%. So it's nothing like liquor, but it's like, you know, strong for beer, but it's like kind of like a weaker wine, really. And it's got that honey taste to it. It's just, that's the one alcohol that I don't think I'm gonna give up. Mead is a good one. I do love weed. For me, cannabis, just talk about intention, man. Like, I smoke a lot of weed. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you lies, but every time I smoke it, it brings me to that spiritual place, and I really do have an intention with it, where it's like my ally. You know, it's like I am merging with this other life force. It's when I consume cannabis, it's a spiritual event for me all the time, like 100% of the time. And even when I feel like, even in that moment where I become aware of like, maybe this is just a habit, it's like, but this is my habit. Like, this is the habit that actually brings me like a true, genuine feeling of connection to like my purpose and God. If the word God is a little corrupted, but love, right? Love, really, ultimately, is the real name for God in my heart of hearts is love. You could call it life, you can call it God, you can call it nature, consciousness, light, Allah, Jah, whatever. It's that creative force that permeates everything, that gives me the power to speak these words, that gives you the power to hear these words and understand these words, and all that shit is happening damn near simultaneously. That power, you know, whatever that is, the mystery. I think love is really, when you talk about like frequencies, stuff like that, like I think that word vibrates at the frequency that is closest, at least as far as English words are concerned. That's the word I feel like vibrates closest to that frequency, or that thing that I'm trying to describe, is love.
Yeah. I like to think of it as a giant pattern, or the song of the universe, you know? Thanks for keeping me in it, God. Appreciate it. Good song. Good song, bro. Okay. Have you found any new
So cannabis to me would be like spiritual food. I kind of think of it like, people eat food, but they don't consider themselves addicted to food, right? So that's how I feel about cannabis. It's spiritual food for me.
Okay. Personally, I feel like I was just smoking a lot. My lungs can't handle it. I have like lame lungs. I have asthma, so I shouldn't be smoking that much anyway. I can eat it, you know, every once in a while. I have some. But also I dream. Like, I'm a dreamer. Like, I'm a really good dreamer. Like, I could do some shit in my dreams. And I don't dream that often when I smoke weed. I don't remember it as clearly. So I had to kind of make a choice on like, do I like dreaming better or do I like weed better? Sometimes I'm done dreaming and I don't want to dream for a while, and I smoke. And then sometimes I really do need to dream, especially when I'm about to do something new, expanding myself in any format. I'm like, okay, it's time to dream. Dude, I'm like always in the military doing work. Like, I'm like desk job or some shit like that. Or like I'm working ops, or it just feels like I'm living in the past in my dreams sometimes when I'm not paying attention. But when I set an intention to remember that I'm dreaming when I'm dreaming, almost every time I remember. And then I'm like, oh, man, I'm bored of this shit. I'm out of here. Like, either that or like I just like, well, why am I dreaming this dream? Like, I'll start asking myself questions. Like, what the fuck am I doing here, man? Like, I'm not working.
So I'm guessing you've seen Waking Life then.
What's that?
Waking Life? You've never seen that?
No.
Oh.
I'm writing it down though. Dude, I live under the big rock.
Nah, I mean, if you're a lucid dreamer, that's like you have to watch it. It's like put that on the priority list above Lost Connections, which is one you have to read. But no, Waking Life is it's an independent film from the 90s, and it's like it's literally about a guy traveling through dreams.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like that happens. I'm excited to hear it now.
He's having like discussions with other dreamers. It's like really well done.
Seen that. It's like a cartoon, right?
Yeah. Yes. And it's even like a dreamy look to it. Like kind of like,
Mhm.
you know what I'm
Yeah, and then
saying?
they're, like, kinda talking about how they're in a dream. Yeah, can't remember when I seen it, but I did. And I didn't know what it was called, but I seen it. And,
Yep.
yeah, actually, it feels like that a lot. A lot of my time actually feels like that a lot. It feels weird. Like, I don't wanna think about it too hard. Like like
You should watch it again because it's one of those that like every time you watch it, you pick up on things that you hadn't picked up on
oh,
previous.
I'm sure.
It's one of my staples. Like I've probably watched it 6, 7 times now.
Okay. Yeah, I remember
12 years.
feeling like a deep kinda like self-understanding like unease, like, I'm like, "Oh," like, I
Oh,
see it,
especially
like,
near
I
the
know.
end.
Oh, yeah.
Because I remember it's like every time I watch it, it's like I remember the first time I watched it, like I got about halfway through the movie and I remember a lot of those like first half of the movie conversations. And then the second time I watched it, like all those conversations became deeper and like I understood them more and it ingrained even more. But then some of the ones like later in the movie, I was like just starting to grasp them for the first time, the second or third time I watched it. And then
Yeah.
the very last few conversations that he has, I didn't even pick up on those really until like the fourth or fifth time I watched it, you
Wow,
know?
okay. So, yeah, maybe I definitely need to watch it. Have you seen Midnight Gospel?
Yeah, with Duncan Trussell.
Yeah, that was
Yeah, it's
such
a
a
good
good
one.
time. That inspired me to start podcasting, actually. Like, at
Oh
that
yeah.
time, I was going through a really tough time. I lost my friends to an accident, a car accident, and I was trying to figure out, like, how I was going to engage with the world now. Like, what's next? And I saw that, and it filled me with a lot of like hope and self reflectance. And I was like, you know what, I can do this. And then I did, and I'm happy I did. But yeah, I definitely want to watch Waking Life again. Yeah, I'll watch it. Like, yeah, lucid dreaming is a weird thing. Like, it's like talk about weird. Dreams are a strange thing. Um,
Mhm.
I don't.
No
Do you dream
kidding.
often?
Yeah, I mean, it's so the last one that I like really remember was like just downright bizarre. Like
What happened?
it was just like the future kind of hit all at once. Like UFOs were everywhere, but it was real. Like this is the thing is it was like fucking I didn't think it was a dream level real. Like
When
really, really real. This was a few months back now.
okay,
Probably like probably right in between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
okay, okay. Mm.
And I mean like
So what happened? Yeah, break it down
it's
for
it's
me.
it's hard for me to recall a lot of it
Okay.
because I didn't write it down like I should have, but I do recall just like looking up. I'm in like a city. Like maybe I was in Richmond or it could have been in a different city. I don't even really remember, but it was a city because there was buildings or like taller buildings around.
Mhm.
But I look up and it's like a fucking army of UFOs. Some fucking gigantic,
Mhm.
some regular, like how, I don't want to say regular sizes. What's a regular size
Regular
of a
size.
UFO? But you know what I mean? Like not fucking absolute. Like there was one that was like swallowing the damn sky almost, but then there was like others coming out of that one that
Yeah.
were like of various sizes though. Like
Mm.
not all the same size and not all different, but like a variety of sizes. And like it just felt the part that got me was it felt so real for what the waking mind would say is an absolutely unreal event. Like UFOs don't even exist, number one, supposedly, or whatever. Or they do, but people rarely see them. Not like that. Like that shit was like clear as day for everybody to see. And weird shit was just happening all like weird shit happens in dreams anyway. But the part that made it even weirder is it all felt really, really real. Like all this shit was really happening, but it was really bizarre. Like it like if it was really happening, it would have been bizarre if it wasn't a dream. But the fact that it was a dream is like, okay, it's all bizarre. It's just a dream. Check it off. But was it just a dream? Because it wasn't just a dream. It was fucking really real. Like
Yeah.
realer than even most dreams. I mean,
I know that feeling because I dream walk a lot, and I know when I'm in my dream and when I've stepped into other things. When it becomes like this is not my brain. Like I've
yeah,
walked.
I don't think that was me. Or I don't know. I don't know. It was like it was part me.
hmm I've had dreams where I've met myself.
Do you have any recurring dreams?
Oh, all the time. I can go back whenever I want.
Hmm. Well, no, I don't mean going back to a dream that you've had before and then continuing from that point. I mean like having almost the same dream again.
Oh, I guess the only one with that would be like when I'm in the military and I'm like working like my operations. Like that place was like really a hellscape. I don't know how else to put it besides like I was stuck in a room for 12 hours surrounded by screens and like I had 6 screens on each side. I had a headset just like you and I had 2 keyboards and 2 mice and I was doing mission coordination for for drone operations for like 3 years, and that was probably like the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I was like so much pressure. I mean no rest, and I did it 4 days a week. So like it was hell. Like honestly, it broke me a lot. But I fought back. So yeah, that's the
The
dream I
reason
have.
I ask is I don't have it anymore, but I used to have a recurring dream. It's probably been at least 5, 6 years since I've had it, but right after college, I would have this dream, and what's really strange is Kanye actually has like a lyric that's like, um, "Oh, I already graduated."
Mhm.
I forget the exact line, but it was the dream was almost exactly like the line that he said. It was like I was in history class or like some sort of poli sci class at Randolph-Macon, and I hadn't been in like 4 weeks, and like I didn't know any of the stuff, and I had to pass this exam in order to get my degree. Um, it was just strange. Just like the only reason I even bring it up is it was just like well, first of all, is there like what's your take on recurring dreams anyway? Like, even if you don't have them, have you ever heard about this
Yeah,
phenomenon where people
yeah,
have
I've
the
had
same
them.
dream?
I've had them. I guess like mine are usually I'm usually in a school. Like I'm always in school actually. Like that's like if I'm not at in the military, I'm at school. I'm always at school and I'm always doing something. Like I'm never testing. Like or well, no, I take tests. I pass them. I'm always doing something, but I'm never in school. Like I'm in school but not of it. Like I am there I've been told I was an auditor. Like I was there to watch what the fuck is going on. You know what I mean? And then figure it out. But you can't do that from a position of power. You have to be there as a person, as a student. And so that's what I do.
Yeah, so I was just looking up that lyric because it was.
Mhm,
I remember the first time I heard that song, I was like, "Yo, that's like the dream that I'm having." Um,
mhm.
yeah, he said, "Class started 2 hours ago. Oh, am I late? No, I already graduated." And the next line is, "You can live through anything if magic made it." But just those 2 lines, class started 2 hours ago. Oh, am I late? No, I already graduated. So it's like in the dream, I'm late to class, or I'm late to the exam. Sometimes I'm actually late to the actual exam. Right? This, like I said, I haven't had this dream in like 5 or 6 years now, but it wasn't the same exact dream, but it was like I was late to class, or I hadn't been to class in several weeks, or I was actually late to the exam.
Mhm.
And then I'd wake up and it was like, no, I already graduated.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had that dream. I've had that dream too. Yes. Yes. I had one where like it was a science test and I mean I didn't know what was going on, but I'm great at science, so I passed that one. I know one that I was always kind of stuck on was like PT tests. Like it was like a physical fitness exam and I'm like I'm on the track like running and I hate running, but I'm doing it and I'm like and I remember I had a series of dreams where I kept getting better And that's what one of the things is like I want to have a better gym routine. And I know that sometimes when you have reoccurring dreams, it can be the thing that you're avoiding, but it's your brain trying to tell you. So for me, it was like physical activity. At other times, it was like I was feeling stagnant, like I needed to learn something new. It's not that you. I mean, that's just been the
Maybe,
solid thing for me.
no, that's okay. Because no, like I said, it was always like a particular class too. It was always like history it was the shit I didn't care
Of
about.
course, right,
So
right,
maybe that was the message. Maybe that was the message was like, hey, you might want to go back and brush up on history.
yeah, yeah. I mean that the our subconscious works in beautiful ways. Like I truly believe that like the way I kind of envision it, like the metaphoric way I see it is that like we're like people riding this dragon, this big dragon that we don't quite understand, and we most people don't even know they're riding it. But that dragon is the subconscious, and I mean, it could be nice and it could be mean. But I think that when you pay attention, you'll learn to stay on top of it instead of letting it ride you. And it's glad to be ridden because it wants you to experience. It wants you to win. Like our bodies want to win. Our brains want to win. We strive for harmony. Our bodies will go into homeostasis if you give it everything it needs. It will go into balance. So I have this like feeling that like I know I'm just this small speck of something writing something way bigger than I can comprehend. I know it from my dreams. I know it from the people, the amazing people that I've communicated with, and the opportunities that have presented myself, like itself in my life. That, like, I can't take credit for my own life. Like, there's something more pushing and moving me. And if I were to say that I was making all the waves, then I'd just be a liar. Like, like it's not. Like I'm always in exactly where I need to be, talking to exactly who I need to talk to. And the only thing I need to do is be present. That's it. And that's another reason why I stopped smoking so much weed because I feel like I wasn't as present. I was like in my head and not here. And I'd much rather be here with you than in the clouds. Sometimes I need that, but that's a big thing. I have a final question, and then that's the last of my questions.
I've got one for you before we hop off.
Okay, okay, I love questions.
I want you to go first, though. I'll ask
Oh,
you
okay.
after.
I was gonna ask you if you have gained any new skills lately that you want to share.
Um, not not particularly. I will say, like at 35, I'm still the type of person that is totally okay with learning new things. I think some people, as they get older, they almost are embarrassed to learn new things because it's like they're embarrassed that they don't already know.
Mm,
Um, but one one of the more counterintuitive or non unorthodox uh, attributes of myself that I take pride in is my willingness to be wrong. I
that's a
think,
good.
yeah, I mean, I think you can't improve without having the courage to be wrong. Otherwise, you're just avoiding gaining any skills at all because you're scared of being wrong or doing it wrong or not doing it well enough or whatever. But being wrong is how you improve. It's how you get better at anything. It's how you, I mean, being wrong philosophically or intellectually in a debate or whatever, that's how you learn. Today, the example that I'm thinking of today is like I had to put new lawnmower blades on my riding mower. Like getting the bolt off of that bitch was a process in and of itself. I finally got, and of course it's dual blades. I spent like an hour, like 40, probably took me 45 minutes to get this bolt off, right? Then I still have to do another one. I go to do the other one. I'm trying to use all the same tricks that I just learned on this one. None of them are working. Like it never, the whole, like, I end up Googling, like, how do you get this stuck bolt? It's pretty much you need an impact wrench. So I got my buddy coming over tomorrow morning, but just little shit like that. You just learn how to deal with, you just do what you got to do sometimes in order to make shit happen. And a lot of times, especially if you're somebody that doesn't have mentors and you have to learn shit on your own, a lot of times that's gonna require you to be wrong sometimes.
Almost every time. Yeah, you gotta be wrong,
If
dude.
you want to get better at anything, if you want to learn anything new, any new skill, you're gonna have to embrace being wrong. It's just how it is.
Ooh,
So,
got a philosophy line for you. It would be
yeah,
the master differs from the student because the master has failed more times than the student has tried.
tried. Yep, I love that one. And that's just so real. Like, failure is just part of being a master. Being wrong is part of being a master.
Yeah.
Just
I
comes with the
think
territory.
the most valuable skill we can learn to do
Mm.
is learn how to fail and fall on our feet. Like literally just like, all right, cool, that's fine. I failed. Fuck it. Let's figure it out. Like dissect that bitch. You know what I mean? Like let's figure it out. Like it's just more information. Every failure is just more information. There's nothing wrong with it. And no one will ever fault you for it. There's no punisher that will stop you that will punish you for self-improvement. You have to try things. You have to be wrong. You have to be daring. You have to do the thing that no one else has done. Sometimes you have to do the thing that everyone has told you has been done and is wrong, but you have to do it anyway because you need to know that it's wrong or that it's not right for you. And you have to do it. Like, the difference between someone who is talented and someone who is skilled. Like someone who is gifted, like they're just good at something naturally. Like, they have an aptitude for it. They have a higher skill cap from the very beginning. But there's a genius. There's a person that's talented that's mastered something that everyone has accepted. But a genius is someone that's hitting a target that no one else can see. Like that's genius. And the only way to reach genius, fuck it up a lot and never stop and keep going and until you figure it out. Like that's how geniuses are made. That's the only way. You can't follow the mainstream and do something new. That doesn't make any sense. You have to go against the grain.
Geniuses are always eccentric.
Yeah, I've never
100%
seen
of
a
the time.
normal genius. Like I'm
Right.
graduated from normal stuff. Mr. Smart guy. I don't know. I don't fucking know what geniuses look like.
Yeah.
But I don't know. All right, what's that last question?
So you joined the military when you were 18?
19, yeah.
What led to that?
Well, I was trying to escape my family. I knew that the only way that I was gonna break my generational curses was to get away from my family. Like I had to get perspective because I was embraced in it. I was stuck in it. And if I would have stayed longer, I would have been I would have still I would have been I wouldn't have learned. I wouldn't have learned how to fail. I wouldn't have learned what it meant to work hard. I would have just taken the easy way out of everything. Going to the military was one of the hardest decisions I had to make because I wanted my freedom from my family. Not just from my family, I wanted freedom from having to depend on people because I was being manipulated because I was dependent. I was a kid and I don't know shit. And my parents were going to teach me because they're too busy fighting each other. And I had nowhere else to get those skills. And I was like, I need a certain set of skills that will make me independent. How do I get those skills? And I asked myself, and I figured it out. I made a plan. And then I was like, okay, am I going to walk this? Like, it's literally, I have to give up my freedom for 6 years. But can I do this? And I did. And when I did, I knew that, like, once I come back, it took 6 more years after getting out of the service to heal, to come back to who I was before. Like, not even before, like, just to connect with myself the way I was before. Not necessarily because I can never go back. I'm never going to be the person I was before the military. I don't want to be that person. That was the reason why I went. I had to learn to be my own man and to question. I'm so happy that I got the job that I did because I was so good at it that they didn't want me doing that job no more. Like I asked too many questions. I was too good of an intel analyst. Yeah, there's a lot behind that, but I did it because, like I wanted to save my family. I was taking care of my mom and my sister at that time. I was sending money back to New York because they were going through the divorce with my dad. Like there's a lot. Like there's so much behind the reason why I had to go through the military. But mostly it was because I knew that if I didn't go, that I was not going to survive my family. And when I came back,
But that was actually
I was good. I was a whole nother beast. They didn't know how to deal with me. They still don't know how to deal with me. They don't know what I am, because I see all of them. Like I see them more than they can see themselves. I can analyze everything that they do and accept them and fully understand that like it's okay. Like I get it. Like I get you. Whether you get me, I get you. I mean I feel bad for you. You know what I mean? And I'd love to help you if you let me. But I mean you do have a set of puzzles in front of you that only you can solve. But I'm always here for you, and I love you. And I mean, I got them to stay out of the city. I got them to. I did a lot. I did a lot of social chess for all my life, all of my life, and that's why I do what I do now. Because I love them. I love them. I love both
so that
sides.
was
Like,
just part one, though. That was just part one of the question.
okay, okay.
Part two is: would you consider your time in the military as the primary catalyst for what I would call a more spiritual outlook that you have now, or a more spiritual worldview, to use the word that I like to use most on here?
I I woke up spiritually before the military. Like I knew
Okay,
I had
that's what that was basically the question was: did
I
that
had
happen
dreams.
before you joined the military, or was that part of your experience in the military?
I'll tell you. I'm gonna tell you this is a two-part question or two-part answer because it's very important. When I was before I was in the military, I started having dreams. I had a mushroom experience and that connected me spiritually, and then I started learning how to dream walk and lucid dream and like all that. Like that's when I started learning that stuff. It was right at the end of high school, and that's why I joined at 19 instead of like 18. Like I had a year in my house where I was like learning. I was like I don't know what the fuck I was doing, dude. I was learning a lot of things though. And I would have dreams where I would be in other worlds and things are talking to me and they're explaining to me that like I'm about to go do something that only I can do. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I knew that I was gonna go to sleep. Like that was the big thing they kept telling me. It was like you're gonna go to sleep, like you're spiritually gonna go to sleep. And I was like, what do you like I don't want to do that. And they're like, it's the only way you can survive. And I was like, okay. And when I went into the service, my whole heart was closed. Like for a long like my life up until the military, I was in survival, straight survival. So like I didn't, and I was detached too. I moved every other year, so like I had no attachments to anybody, and I'm not even my family. Like to the point where I was like, I don't give a fuck. Like I didn't have attachments, and I felt hollow. Like my heart was dying, and that's why I had to go on this mission. And when I was in the military and I was doing my operations, when I saw the loss of life, like the true loss of life, innocence, when I saw the loss of innocent lives, like that was the beginning of my weird reawakening. And then I at the time I had a fiance. We lived together for almost the whole time that I was in the service. We lived together, and we were gonna get married. Um, but she had a really bad drinking problem, and she also went through a hell. Like I thought my life was hard, her life was hell before I met her. Hell. She was in the adoption system. She'd been abused by more families than I could count, sexually, physically, you name it. Like she'd been through it, and she had brothers that she took with her through the system, and she was still working with them. And she was a very damaged but very very strong person, and I looked up to her a lot. And our relationship got strained over our time with war. I mean, she did the same job as I did, so we'd come back home and we'd be like, "Dude, we just blew up a bunch of people today. Like, you good?" And she'd be like, "Fucking good, Jarrell." I'm like, "All right, man, let's fucking drink or something. Like, let's not talk about it." But we eventually we realized that we were both very unhealthy. Like that we needed mental health, like mental health care, because we didn't know how to take care of each other and we didn't know how to take care of ourselves. And she got pregnant, and I realized that like this was the moment where like I needed to stick by her because we were gonna break up. Like that was the thing. We were like broken up. Like we broke up but lived in the same house, and then we found out she was pregnant, and I was like, I'm by your side. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm here. Like, what do you need? Like, what do you want to do? Because we're in a situation where, like, we're literally at war. Like, I mean, we don't have the tools. Like, we don't have the tools, but I will break my back to figure it out. Like, I'm not gonna leave you, because that was her whole thing. She had a really bad attachment. Everyone abandoned her. You know what I mean? And I was like, I will never abandon you. You're deeper than a relationship. You're my brother in arms. You know what I mean? When we go and fucking kill people together, like, you don't you don't go back. You don't go back to just like, all right, bye. Like, you have problems, I'm out. Like, it's a deep bond, and it's more than any ring could ever be. It was serious, and so I asked her, like, what can we do? She said that she couldn't keep that kid, and I understood that, like, we both weren't ready, and she wound up having the abortion, and that's where my heart broke. Like, that's where I reawakened for real. That loss of life, that child, became my heart. Like, after that, I realized that innocence, like, there's life that is sacred. Like, it was the closest that I've ever come to creating life, and it's and because of the war, because of all this stuff, I couldn't raise it. I couldn't be there. I couldn't do it. I couldn't be that father, and neither could she be the mother. Like, it was a situation where all the systems that happened before us made us incapable of the miracle that was right in front of us, or at least that's what we believed. We didn't have family. I didn't have family I can send the kid back to. She didn't have family that she can send it back. We had no stability on both sides, and we still were at war. Like, we couldn't stop, and it broke my heart. Like, honestly, it broke me wide open. I never had attachment to people before, and now, even to this day, I look back and I'm like, that kid would be 9 years old today. Like, like, that kid lives through me. That it became my heart. Like, I have a compassion because I know what it's like to lose. I know what it's like to take innocence. I know what it's like to be forgiven. I know what it's like to be in hell. I know what it's like to feel damned. I know what it's like to be in mental asylums. I know what it's like to feel like there's no redemption, like there's no hope. I know what it's like to be lied to on such a scale that you feel like everything in your life makes no sense. When I found out the military was lying, when I found out the government wasn't right, and I found out my family wasn't all this, when I found out all these things, like, what was left of me? And I realized that the only thing that can fill that hole is everyone else. I'm gonna put everyone else in that fucking hole. And I'm gonna love them. I'm gonna love them as best I can. I'm not gonna hold on because it's not my responsibility. But anytime I get the opportunity to have a one-on-one and be with someone for a second, I try my best to give them as much of my heart as I can, because I feel like we have. I mean, that was my purpose. Like, that was the reason why that child died, is so that I could have this heart, and I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna use it until I'm dead. That's it. That was the big thing that happened in the military. That and after, I mean, like I said, I had to go through all the PTSD therapy. I had to go and do mushrooms and lose myself and lose some friends and get hurt and figure out how I was gonna use this blessing. But I mean, I never stopped, and that's what happened. Yeah, that's the story in a nutshell.
We can probably go ahead and wrap up. I appreciate you sharing, is what I said. I appreciate you sharing
Okay.
that. The one thing that you said there, that it reminds me, a lot of things that people say remind me of Toltec quotes and Don Miguel Ruiz quotes. One thing that I said on my very last podcast, and I actually made it into a short, is a quote that's been hitting me really, really hard lately, is that I would rather be happy than to be right.
Hmm.
But what you were just saying expands on that. And it says, another quote from the Toltec is, you can receive all the love in the world, and that love will not make you happy. What will make you happy is sharing your love. What
Amen.
makes you happy is the love coming out of you, not the love coming into you. So that's basically what you were saying there, is that that's what makes you happy. And I feel like that is a like deep truth, like a foundation bedrock truth of like how to be happy is to love.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing.
Thank you for listening. I appreciate your questions.
Absolutely, man. We'll do it again in 10 months.
Yeah, give me
8 months.
yeah. I'll definitely
All right,
give
man. I appreciate you. Yeah, the audio is a little different since this thing cut off, so probably that time anyway. But love you, man. I appreciate you.
much love, buddy. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.
Do you believe in repenting? What if the kingdom of heaven's within you? Do you think you would enter, huh? What do you know, huh? How do you know truth from the pit of your soul, or just cause somebody told you? Do you think about what you think about? Do you see yourself in the people that you hang around? Keep quiet, let me think aloud. Listen up, wanna break it down and question your perceptions. I'ma break it down and question your perceptions. Do you ever question your perceptions? Do you ever question it? Oh yeah. What if your money was worthless? Then would you know what your worth is and reconsider living with a purpose? How would you determine what work is? Are you seeking what's easy to purchase, or is it deeper than what's on the surface? Do you question your perceptions? Ever so is real, huh? It ain't your politicians, nor your status. All of that is fiction, so it's real, huh? It ain't your entertainment, nor the industry. I heard it's filled with fake shit. And I need truth over everything. Yeah. I need truth above all else. 'Cause I need truth over everything. Yeah, give me the truth, yeah.